Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. I am Nick with Quinn, and there's this.
Did I catch you off guard or something? Did I?
No.
Oh,
Everything's fine.
you're like, I know exactly where everything is. What's a manga? Come on, Nick, put it together.
Why are all these comics backwards?
Where'd the color go? Am I blind?
Oh God, we've got so much manga to talk about today.
Has there ever been a week where we've just been like, guys, we got like nothing? It's like 3 series. This is gonna be easy.
And then we immediately shoot ourselves in the foot by being like, we can take our time on everything.
It's where a couple extra tangents start coming out, you know, a little extra, like, you know, let's put some extra spice in this chapter, and then you're like, oh my God, yeah. It's been an hour.
We can mine deeper on this one frame. It's great. We have a big recommendation to talk about today, everybody. This is number 4 of the 5-headed monster that Quinn unleashed upon me. The 5-headed secret monster, because I don't know what the other 3 heads are still.
You were physically here and could have seen my list, and you chose not to, or I didn't tell you. I don't remember which.
I think that you did literally have it like sitting on your desk while we recorded it live.
Yeah.
And you were like, hold on. And I was like, well, I'm not going to look because I have faith in the system. And I'm not going to betray my friend like that.
It's interesting you have faith in the system knowing I created a system. So,
I have faith in the system.
Fair enough. Well, this is a big series, Nick, for Weekly Manga Recap to cover. There aren't many series, Nick, in Weekly Manga Recap's nearly 15-year history now, where we can say a series is truly controversial. Like, if you were to create a WMR wiki, which may already exist, I don't know. I'm going to assume not, but there's a wiki for just about everything. There would be a controversy section under Mission Yozakura Family. There would be a little blurb where they have to be like, all right, guys, so there was some dialogue about this series that was had.
And now you know out there, if you do have any interest in creating a Weekly Manga Recap fan wiki, which there is enough that you could, let's be real, then now you know you have to add that section. It's a requirement. It's got to be canonized now. Mission Yozakura Family, we covered it for a significant amount of time. It started in Shonen Jump in August 2019, and of course, every single time that a series debuts in Jump, we at least give it a few chapters. And this was one that I in particular thought was quite promising at the time. I thought that it had a good combination of humor, good art, action, and like very earnest sentimentality to it, because they're as you can tell by the title, it's all about family. And honestly, I'm going to probably make a lot of Fast and Furious references, or I would if I'd ever watched any Fast and Furious, but I'll make a lot of comparisons. You'll see what I mean.
Don't worry, Nick. I've seen 1 and 10, and
sounds about right.
I'm not going to lie. There's a lot more family stuff in 10 than there is in 1. In 1, they're just trying to steal DVD players.
DVD.
That was the big loot object. It was like a truck carrying DVD players. It was like 2002. Someone like in a writing room was like, nothing will be worth more than DVD VCR combos.
Wow. Hitsuji Gondaira started the series off in 2019, pre-pandemic. Can you believe that? And for modern day Jump, it lasted a long time, more than 5 years.
Just ended this year, a couple months ago.
So that's a sizable run for this day in age in Jump. All of it is out in Japanese, all 29 volumes. Half of that's out in English, and there's a couple more that are coming out in the next couple of months. And the series is about a family of spies, the Yozakura family, and how a neighbor to one of the daughters of the family, Mutsumi, her neighbor Tayo, is kind of forced to join the family via marrying Mutsumi because his family is killed, and there is a whole conspiracy that honestly the details are kind of sketchy because after about a third of the series it stops being relevant entirely.
Yes.
He's just part of the family. And because he joins the family, he also has to learn to be a super spy like them. Each of the other siblings, besides Mutsumi, has kind of a very extreme version of a spy or assassin gimmick that essentially is like, what if that but was a superpower? So, what if instead of being, a skilled martial artist, there was someone who could literally just judo flip literally anything in the entire world, including gravity eventually. And Mutsumi herself doesn't have any powers, but she is the most important figure in the family because all these powers that the Yozakura members have stem from the head of the family, which is passed down through their bloodline. So literally her blood is considered like a huge black market object of interest because it could spawn people with more superpowers. And so it is up to the other siblings and Tayo to keep her safe, while also Tayo is trying to find out about the truth about his family being killed. And that is the premise, but in practice, a lot of it is spy-themed shenanigans for a big chunk of the story, as a lot of this is a very humor-driven series and a very kind of schmaltzy family feel-good driven series in between a lot of really out of the ordinary action sets.
Yeah, I think you got a general gist of it. And as mentioned, we covered this for a portion. I can't remember the exact chapter we dropped it with, but it was in like the 40s or so.
It was, I think, just short of a year.
Yeah, I was going to say right around that point. And then I technically continued talking about it during a series I did on the Patreon for a bit called Monthly Other Recap, where I would discuss all the stuff that we didn't talk about in the recap. I continued to talk about Mission Yozakura family there into, I want to say, like maybe the 100th. I can't remember exactly. I know it was during the Kawashita arc. I think it was around the time that they started introducing, like, they were like, we have to deal with the other heads of the family. And sometime around then.
That was the Momo arc then.
Yes, it was like the very early start of that, I want to say. And how do I want to do this? So, well, what I want to kind of get out there, the reason why I led with the idea, I was like, well, this is a controversial series in Weekly Manga Recap, is that we dropped it because neither Nick nor myself particularly enjoyed reading it at that point. We very commonly had nothing to say on the series, or word negative, I think, in my case a lot. And we have a very vocal section of our audience that didn't just really enjoy the series, but were like very much like, I don't think you're giving it a fair shot, or just like, I really enjoy this and it's kind of a bummer hearing you shit on it and stuff like that. I went into this series with a different mindset, I think. I don't know, times change. There's a whole transition to go, so I came in with fresh eyes. And I do want to, like, and this is like in all sincerity, I know in the show I do a lot of like gotcha speeches and stuff like that. In all sincerity, I do want to apologize for the way I kind of acted back then. There is like a attitude that when you're doing a show, you kind of like feel the need to get like animated in your opinion on something sometimes, and maybe that was like a level that I was going under. In reading it, I don't think the series is anywhere near as bad as I kind of gave it the tail end of the stick for back in the old days. I'm able to appreciate a lot of things about this series. And that's just, I want to give a nice, clean, simple apology to anyone in the audience who maybe I bummed out back in the day for being a little too hard on the series. There's no but.
I hope that I just heard the most recent comment. Okay. I hope I heard the most recent comment you made because I had a weird hiccup there. Yeah, I would say that at its worst, the series is harmless. I definitely feel like it went down easier covering this in big chunks than it would have had we continued to cover it week to week, because of the odd back and forth that the series tends to do. There's very few stretches where it feels like there is a consistent pace and tone that's being maintained. And so there were elements of this story all throughout its run that I just did not care for. And those would have been the focus of entire chapters.
Yeah.
And there would have been a whole lot of me going like, oh, good, another fucking Kengo comedy chapter. I hate this shit. But in between here and there are some really nice bits. And I feel like ultimately it would have been frustrating to see the series kind of get up to the edge of like trying to convince you that something was intense and important, and then not so much making a joke out of it as refusing to take itself seriously after it had gone through all the trouble of trying to make you take it seriously. Which is, the rug pull in that regard can be a deliberate way of injecting humor into something. The whole joke can just be like building something up and up and up and up, and then just going, just kidding. That's something that we've seen some manga do before. But there were a number of times where I would see, like, I feel like especially in like the second big arc, because I kind of divide the series into thirds based off of who the antagonist is. Where there was some like really dark shit that was happening when Momo, their father, is like, talking about like essentially turning his family into zombies because he wants to be back together with them. He makes all these demented expressions. He looks crazy. He looks frightening. And then that same character immediately, oh, look at him doing a goofy thing, like the next chapter. And that, I think, would have been an incredibly frustrating experience for me to go through week to week. Whereas, because I was kind of going through it in chunks, I was able to go, okay, well, I'm sure that is a pace that, like, people who like the series would be fine with. Maybe just, like, have a bit of fun and not have to worry about, like, going through a droning, dull drudge all the time with something. You kind of get a grab bag of like sometimes serious moments, sometimes exciting moments, sometimes humorous moments, sometimes cute moments, and it's never going to be any one thing for a very long stretch. It'll always jump between those in some way before too long. I wouldn't have liked that. I feel like a lot of people did, though.
Yeah, so how do I want to talk about this part of it? I want to clarify everything I said earlier, not a bit. I do want to also stress my opinion on this series has not changed. I still don't particularly like this series, and I don't think it's for me. But I'm able to acknowledge sort of where I don't enjoy it versus like, oh, other people seem to actually really like that. One of the big things is like, I don't particularly like Taiyo and Mutsumi. I don't think that our leads are particularly engaging characters. I just don't find any depth in them. And their romance is such a like focal point of this series, not just in that it's like the premise, but also like there are fights that Taiyo wins because he really loves Mutsumi. It is the actual mechanical reason he gets to the other side of a fight. And I was like, sure, I guess she's nice. I just don't really know that much else about her, I guess. I don't know.
Do you remember how many romantic moments Mutsumi and Taiyo had in the series?
So, like, what organic or like a full page spread that's meant full page spread they're like once a week. That shit's constant. But some people really like that. They like that the series is genuinely very cute, very adorable. These leads don't need to be too complicated. They just love each other. And I find their love for each other enviable. Like, I think that is cool. But it takes a long time to, like, I don't know, feel like there's a reason why these two are together. And I guess the best way I can explain it is I didn't really remember the first chapter when we were recapping this series originally. Like, I remember reading it, but, like, just didn't retain. You read a lot of new series. They don't always stick with you. And, like, reading it this time, like, I must have just missed a whole bunch that really explains why Taiyo and Mutsumi like each other. And I was like, no, she just said that I'll never leave you at his parents' funeral or his family's funeral, and that was enough for him to be like, we're this forever, baby. Like, whatever, I'm never letting you go. And yeah, I think there's
they grew up next to each other, and they were nice to each other, and they decided that they loved each other, and that's kind of it.
And that's fine, and that is ultimately,
as we all know, childhood friends always grow up to fall in love with each other.
Always. I'm really rooting for you, Hanoka. I can't wait for you and Iamori to work out. Everyone always talks about how Raku and Onodera made such a cute couple canonically at the end. So, I guess she wasn't even the childhood friend. There was another childhood friend character introduced in Nisekoi later on.
Right.
Anyways, I appreciate that this series has this element that is very, I don't want to say cozy, but in a similar adjacency to, like, a cozy, like, even though you mentioned that, like, there are some, like, kind of creepy moments in this series, this is still, like, Shonen Jump. You know, there's not a lot of, like, savagery happening. This isn't like Jujutsu Kaisen where they're going to be like, hey, you like this character? What if they exploded in front of you? You know, like, what if their guts were on your face? Like, that doesn't happen in this series. You're going to get good feels from kind of everybody, but there will be, like, some dramatic tension eventually.
Sure.
The main thing, though, is that this series, and we talked about this when we were discussing it, very clearly did not know what it was going to be early on. It was like, hey, we have a premise. This guy, he marries into a spy family. They're all really strong. The oldest brother wants to kill him. It's a comedy, but sometimes we do dramatic stuff, and go. And if you read the series from beginning to end, you notice, like, a giant swath of characters who are introduced that don't actually do anything, because once the Kawashida arc happens, this story firmly cements itself on the family. They are the only characters who matter. Early on, you'd almost be like, yeah, I don't really know that much about Nanao or Kengo. Like, they get, like, 1 or 2 chapters every now and then. After the Kawashida arc, you say goodbye to everybody else in this series. They are irrelevant, to the point where, very humorously, they rescue the little girl Ai in that arc. And I shit on this character so much when she got introduced into the manga, because I was like, you motherfuckers will put googly eyes and a diaper on a teapot and call it the cutest thing in the fucking world. But I was like, you know what? Let them have their whoopee anything. It is literally a character introduced as, like, kind of like the adoptive child of Taiyo and Mutsumi.
Very specifically.
Then they have biological children. That fucking character goes not curb. She is not relevant. She doesn't do a fucking thing in the rest of the series.
I was really annoyed by that. And I'll tell you why. It's not that I particularly like I did think that, you know, when she had her little story where, because she gets, like, one little story after they essentially adopt her, which is that she wants to help get pork so that they can make tonkatsu, and they're out of it at the market. So she ends up going into the wild to kill wild boars and bring them back, because she's got, you know, a little bit of Goku in her, essentially. Yeah. She's got insane strength, and she's got, you know, no sense of, like, what a little kid should be like. So, but Taiyo and Mutsumi are kind of, like, you know, really worried about her. They're really doting on her during that point. And then there is a time skip between, like, the second and third parts of the story where, yes, they have biological children. They have 2 twins. And I was really annoyed because like I still around during this, and the story makes a huge deal about the importance of family, not just specifically blood family, because of course Tayo is, not related to all the others, but he by that point in the story is just as important to them as any of their actual siblings are. Ai is essentially part of that family.
Yes.
And Ai is one of the few people that stays at the mansion with Tayo and Mutsumi during the time skip. The thing is that the others are going off and getting training arcs done. And I should essentially be an older sister to their twins.
Yeah.
That is a criminally underexplored dynamic that could have been used, of them having like this big sister figure who is also like, less mature even than Tayo was at the beginning of the story. There is so much that you could do there. And instead, she's just around. She is basically just another mascot character. Like Goliath the dog becomes much less important as like a member of the family, because it's like we've got others that could do insane things and stuff like that, so we don't need to have things about like, oh, here's the family dog and stuff. He just is like around to do like weird little gag bits here and there, and it's like, all right, he's a dog. Like but it's like, all right, so Ai is just another little mascot that we have. She's just around. Ayaka the maid is just around. And it's like, I'm not saying you have to do anything with these characters, but why are you keeping them around and saying that they're important in the family if they're not getting to do anything or interacting with the family in any important way?
It was an extremely odd decision. As I read into it, I was like, well, this character's basically, like, quite literally, like, explicitly kind of mentioned as their adopted child, so surely she's going to be relevant in this post-time skip, because I knew they had twins eventually. I've seen images and stuff like that, so I was like, surely she's more relevant when those characters show up, and it's like, no. she sits in the war room with the other characters who don't do anything, and doesn't do anything. That's pretty much it. But that is the case with a lot of characters. Like the core cast of the family, the actual 7 siblings and Tayo, are the only characters who are really interesting. Then when the two, next generation, the twins come along, they're also relevant. But like, even members of the family who aren't, like, I was blown away when I was like, did the grandpa die off screen and I forgot about it? Like, he was all around at the start. Now he's not showing up at all. Same with the grandma. I was kind of floored by it for a little bit. They kind of show up every so often when they need to do like I don't know, here's like the cool mentor doing something moment. Like he gets to have like a little showdown with Momo back when Momo's like the new cool antagonist. But then very quickly those characters also kind of disappear, to the point where I think someone posted in our Discord like a volume extra that is added in to be like, here's what all the other characters I said were important were doing during the big final battle. They were fighting random people, but they were all there. They were all doing cool things. Don't worry. The 2 members of the fucking group with like the full outfits, the guy with like the sword who steps on flowers or whatever, he's there. He's doing stuff. Like, everybody's got their own actions to do. I think we might have a little communication issue with Nick at the moment here. He's figuring out. Oh, do we get him back?
I don't know what my computer decided to do, but there is some sort of thing happening in the background that's taking up all the disk power, and I can't track it down.
Oh, no. That's okay. I still have... I want to talk about some good things in this series that I liked.
Sure.
I really like the Kawashita arc as I read it through this time. I think before reading it sort of in these big chunks when I was doing it on Monthly Other Recap, it was kind of obnoxious because it was like very formulaic. Like, here is Kengo's fight. Kengo will have a dramatic chapter. It will end with him activating his blooming. The next chapter will be an explanation for what Kengo's blooming does. It is not visually cool. He just has a unique ability that wins. That's it. And then it would move on to the next sibling, and they would get their blooming, and then they would have their fight, and it still wouldn't have like a very visual element to it. The only one who I think really gets anything that like kind of has like a visual thing for you to connect to is Kengo, or not Kenko, Shinzo, and even his is like,
because he's got a weapon thing, right?
yeah. Well, also his blooming isn't the weapon, but he introduces the weapon at the same time as the blooming, so I just kind of connect the two. But there were elements in that though where I read it once. It is just kind of cool. It's just nice seeing these characters all get like their superpowers again. Like, I thought these characters were more annoyingly present throughout the series, but a lot of them are just kind of like one-off jokes throughout a lot of chapters. We discussed back in the day that like a lot of early Mission Yozakura family is like, we need to go to the McDonald's. Oh, but it's a spy McDonald's, and to order a value meal, you have to walk over 200 trip mines and decode a lock and stuff like that. You know, maybe Kengo shows up to take off all of his clothes, or you know, whatever his gimmick is. But later on, they just start to be like full characters, and they get to have like full little bits. And some of them are good, some of them are emotional. I think there's you know, I can see why people would get invested in the villain group there. I think Kawashita himself was kind of cool. This guy who's doing some very insidious things, but is like treated like the joke, like the butt monkey, even by his own team. So there's like a fun kind of like, he seems kind of shitty, but like once you see the actual actions he's doing, you're like, oh, this guy's actually kind of evil. This is like a real bad dude. I'm glad somebody's trying to stop him. So I really enjoyed the Kawashita arc. I thought he kind of came together pretty nicely.
I thought that that was at least where the series was definitely able to find its footing in terms of like what it was, you know, supposed to be. It felt like there was like much more purpose behind things. And some of those fights are fun. I did grow to like some of the characters more because after I got to see, you know, them actually like do things. I, however, found that after that point, there's a lot of plateau that feels like it happens for the cast. Because like Tayo, obviously, through the course of that arc, is getting to a point where it's like, no, now he can finally like stand on his own. He becomes one of the primary combatants and stuff. A thing happens then with him because he's like been injected with Yozakura blood and all this stuff. He becomes, you know, like this special exceptional case, and so they've got to like train his awakening power and everything. And then he does nothing in the Momo arc, which is very unusual. Like there is a whole indication that he's going to, and he gets to a point where he looks like he's going to, and then someone else swoops in and does it instead. Because they make a really big deal that like he's the one who can actually hurt Momo, because like his attacks like have the blooming and blossoming and stuff in such a way that he can do it. And then he is stopped before he can do it. Kyoichiro looks like he's going to do it instead. And then just the actual villain of the series shows up and just kills Momo, essentially. And so it's like, all right, why do we do any of this? What was the point of it? And there is at least a little bit of reflection on, you know, it's like, oh, Tayo feels, you know, like worthless and stuff. It's like, yeah, for a chapter. And then they just kind of like move on because we got to do other stuff. But that kind of thing also just happens, it feels like, with everyone. I found myself really frustrated with a lot of characters in this because it feels like a lot of them are good ideas and then nothing's done with them. Nanao, the youngest brother, he's got this whole thing where it's like he is a chemical genius. He does a lot of stuff experimenting on himself with drugs. It morphs his body. And we see that happen like more and more throughout the series. His personality doesn't ever really change. He's just like, he's a reliable younger brother. Kengo, I found to be very annoying through a lot of the series. He does have some moments where he gets to actually like be serious, but they don't seem to have long-term impact on his character. And I feel, even though I felt like he probably had the best dramatic thing happen in the final arc, the stuff involving he and his teacher, it felt like there wasn't really a through line, and it didn't feel like it actually led to a conclusion that affected him in some way. Shion,
I would disagree on Kengo, if only because I think my favorite moment of Kengo is actually during the Momo arc. The Momo arc has no like antagonist besides Momo, so the way they create battles for the battle manga to do basically is a couple of the kids get brainwashed and the siblings have to fight each other. And there is a fight where Kengo is fighting Shinzo, and Shinzo can't just doesn't like isn't able to like recall anything. And Kengo has his ability to like assimilate. He gets to go inside people's minds and know them better. And in that, he gets to explain to Shinzo, he's like, here's why you're a great brother. Like, right now, Dad's like locked away all of these things about yourself that you're not even recalling, but you're like extremely compassionate towards others. And you're always looking out for everyone else. Like, he starts like listing off like actual reasons why Kengo or Shinzo would be a very good brother. And I was like, this makes a lot of sense for the character whose entire gimmick is he watches and observes people so that he can imitate and mimic them. And I thought it was just a very nice touch for that character to establish who they were and to give like a close sibling moment between two characters. So I'm like, I can't think of a ton of moments they've had together, but like, sometimes that's how family is, where you're like, look, I know we don't talk that much. There's like 8 of us, but like, I do love you, brother, or whatever, that sort of stuff. So yeah. I liked him there, and I thought there was like a little bit of a full closure there. But I will agree with you in that I don't think anybody really comes away from that final arc feeling like there was like a full circle to everything they were doing. No. There is an expectation kind of set up by the idea of the training arcs, and nothing is confronted in any of them except for maybe Kengo.
It really doesn't feel like there is a real proper payoff to them going their separate ways to do all those training arcs.
What did Koichiro even do? I don't actually he had to tear down all of his Mutsumi posters and then became the principal of that school. But
yes,
did he do anything else? He was just the principal. Okay,
he could be near Mutsumi. That was his training. It was I don't know.
I guess
I will agree with you that I feel like out of all of the less important siblings, that Kengo probably gets the best individual moments where there's a really strong showing of potential that does, at least in the moment, have a good impact. I don't feel like there's a good through line to any of them though, and so for that reason, it's the bad of how he is all the time kind of got balanced out a bit by the good that he had in really important moments. Shion, who I really wanted to be my favorite character because she's, a slovenly hacker girl who's hot. I liked her thing at first, which is that, it's a very simple premise of she is an introvert. She doesn't like hanging around with the other family members, and she always makes a big deal of whatever, I don't care about anything. But it's deep down, she cares about them in her own way and stuff. It's very straightforward, but easy to understand a gimmick. And, it's nice to have a character whose whole thing is I don't directly fight people. She fights through her drones and stuff, but she's still very dangerous in that way. So, about halfway through the series, someone got in Gondaira's ear and was like, she's the hot one. And so you see a lot more of her feet than you do in the beginning parts of the story. You see a lot more of her in sexy cosplay than you did in the early parts of the story. There's all this stuff about her being a live streamer who keeps on getting sexualized, wearing, outfits that where she doesn't wear a shirt underneath the jacket and stuff. And it's you know what? If you want to make a character hot, that's totally fine. Have her do something that's interesting too on top of that, please. Because she doesn't. She's just a hacker who kind of gets less interesting as the story goes on. I don't think that there is a really interesting thing she gets to do for the entire second half of the series. And it's greatly annoying to me because aesthetically, I feel like she was my favorite, and opening personality wise was probably my favorite. And then she just gets lumped in as part of the duo with Kengo. There's a whole lot of jokes about well, they're the middle siblings, so they're being weird. And the whole her whole family dynamic of she's kind of standoffish. She doesn't being schmoozy with everyone. she just becomes the exact same doting aunt that all of them are to the twins. She acts the exact same way towards them as everyone else does.
Well,
and
that's part of a larger problem in this series that I'm going to get to. We can get to a little bit later on, but I do agree that a lot of the development seems to be kind of saved for Koichiro and Futaba to a lesser extent. I shouldn't say character growth for Futaba, but like Futaba at least gets to appear and do a lot and speak. But Koichiro gets like a full like sort of arc for his character.
If there's anyone who comes full circle through the series, it's him. Yes.
It's so we've talked about before how we're not a fan of like obsessive big brothers in manga. Those characters suck. There's literally one we're gonna have to talk about later this week in the magazine who sucks. I don't know why. It's a character archetype they do a whole lot of.
Go ahead, Quinn.
I'm trying to remember where my point was going on that.
Do you want me to talk about how I hate Shinzo and buy you time?
You can. I think more what I'm trying to go with is people have said they're like, well, Koichiro is the good one. Like, there's all these ones, you know, you get your Gauche, you know, you get your Lance, you know, your whatever. There's these characters who are just obsessed with their kid, their younger sister. And like Koichiro is the good one. He is not. Koichiro is also awful. He just gets to be someone besides that character personality point later on in the series.
Which is a very important thing, of course, to do that.
Oh, well, actually, you know what? Hold on. Maybe I need to amend it. Koichiro, like, if Koichiro, like, your enjoyment of him's, like, kind of down here in comparison to, like, everyone else, because early on he's just, like, this annoying, like, Mutsumi, kiss me kind of guy. He gets better in that everyone else kind of levels out around him at some point. Eventually, everyone else in this series is kind of a little bit of a freak. And you're like, oh, okay, then I guess this guy isn't so abnormal anymore. Everyone here is just doesn't respect boundaries.
He benefits a lot when the twins are born because his sister complex turns into a big doting uncle thing. And a lot of it isn't even that he stops being a siscon, he definitely still is. It's that for a big chunk of the story, Tayo's not the protagonist, the twins are. And so the relationship is very different. He's no longer an antagonistic force towards Tayo, who's really upset with him for being close to Mutsumi. He is just this guy who really loves his niece and nephew and wants to be close to them because he loves them so much. But he's also a really weird guy that they don't understand at first. And they, you know, go on a mission together where, you know, he is kind of like looking after them, making sure that they can get through everything okay. And he doesn't really know how to deal with them through big chunks of it. He really wants to handle everything for them. They're capable enough and he has to accept that. There's a really, really cool moment where after they have solved the first leg of their mission together, they fall asleep next to him on the bench because they're like 4 years old. He picks them up in his arms and starts walking with them through the rain, and he's using his powers as an umbrella above them. A bunch of spies show up to kidnap them because there's a huge bounty on their heads, and he's like, I'm going to just kill all of you. And he does it immediately while he just keeps on walking with them in his arms. It's badass, and it's a really cool thing of like, this is the type of character that this guy is. He is a horrifying monster who loves these two little things so genuinely and deeply that he can do both of these things at the same time. He has some really funny moments with them too, because eventually they learn like what kind of gets him to leave them alone. There's a very silly moment where they want him to just go away for a bit. So Hifumi, the twin sister, just looks at him and goes, Uncle Kyoichiro, you stink. And he just can't handle it. He just collapses on the spot. It's much more endearing because the dynamic is different with him as the adult and the two of them as little children. And then he also gets to have moments where he does connect with them on a much deeper level. They have a little sibling argument over what to name a combination attack of theirs. And he really struggles with that because he's like, I don't really understand what I'm supposed to do here. And then he tells them, like, look, I don't understand what your attack really, what this attack name thing is cool about either of your choices. But what's important is that you guys decided it together and stuff. He's able to be very genuine with them, and that bonds them together. He has a lot of really nice moments like that. And through that, he's not really, cured of his problems, but you are exposed more and more to the good parts of him. And that makes him a more bearable character because he has more facets to him that make him more interesting than just he loves his sister a lot and he's weird.
Yeah, I think that does help. It's kind of like getting to know a member of a family, and you're like, look, that's weird, Uncle Koichiro. You're not allowed to go on vacation alone with him. But if anything ever happens, you talk to him because he'll make sure you're taken care of. All right, like he's not allowed in your room. You can't, I wouldn't take pictures with him. You never know where those are gonna go. They could get hung on a wall.
Probably on his wall.
Yeah, but you are allowed to tell this guy if something's going on. He'll kill something if you need it.
Now let me talk about how I hate Shinzo.
Go for it.
So, I hate Shinzo. I really hate him.
Okay.
I think that the opening bit with him, which is that he is a very nervous guy who looks like Rambo, huge and muscular, but he's a very big scaredy cat who's shy around people. So he hides in a trash can and is only really comfortable when he's handling weapons. But then if you threaten his family, that's when he gets his confidence and he turns into Papa Wolf. It's an okay part to start from. I think that that's, a nice, easy character that you can get behind. Leads some very easy, heartwarming moments and stuff. At a certain point, someone got on Gundaira's ear and said, people love Muscle Daddy. You got to give us more Muscle Daddy. You just got to give him more, get him in that Speedo. Don't let him do anything interesting ever. Just have him be muscular, and that's it. And again, there's nothing wrong with sexualizing a character if you give them something interesting to do. Just give them something else.
I really never thought that Oda sending Sanji to an island of queer folk to be chased by them to strengthen his feet and skills would ever be topped in levels of like, well, this is clearly the most problematic training arc for a time skip you've ever given someone.
My God.
But Shinzo's training arc being like, oh, you're going to get sexualized by this older man who's into your muscles and is gonna, the insinuation is that he's gonna take your clothes off when he wants to. I was like, I'm sorry, what is this? What, how is this supposed to make him better? Like, I don't quite understand, especially when like his arc is actually there. Like, he has one. The entire concept is just like, he is very proficient in weapons, but he's very scared of them because he knows the damage they can do. And his blooming is very, very powerful, but he's terrified of it because it just kills people. And that's like something that haunts him. And he has to kind of get over that because he's like, look, I don't want to do this. Please don't make me use my blooming on you. But this fight I can't lose, so I'm going to do it. If it comes down to it, I'm going to do it. And that stuff's good. And then at the very end, his like, I forget what they call it. It's like springtime blooming or full spring blooming or something like that. It's about how he gets to save something. Like that's ultimately what he wants to do. A lot of everyone's like true bloomings are just like inversions of what their regular blooming does, which isn't necessarily good character writing, but I thought it worked for Shinzo because he is someone who really doesn't want to be doing what he is doing. But like, yeah, he doesn't like I skipped only 4 chapters of this in my read through. And it was the series of chapters with his wedding where I was like, how long does this shit go on for? And I just kind of zoomed forward and I was like, I don't know why Tayo's here, but I'm kind of glad he is. I'm just going to keep reading from here.
Honestly, one of my favorite comedy moments in the series happens during the wedding arc. It's where they're trying to get in to break it up and Ryu, who is, the guy who's kind of forcing Shinzo and his daughter to get together, has blackmail on all of them. So he's like, if you try and do anything, I'll release blackmail material on you, because he's, a big journalist guy. And so it's, it's a series of gags where it's like, oh, what's the big secret that the person's ashamed of? So some of it starts off like pretty obvious, which is just like Kyoichiro is the leader of a Mutsumi worshipping cult. And so it's like, so, oh, if you try and stop it, I'll release this. And so then it goes to Futaba, and it's like, well, one time she wet the bed, and so that got out, and so that's the big thing. Then it gets to Shion, and it turns out she owns a GeoCities page where she posts poetry she's written, and it's like, that's very strange and out of character for her. Of course she's embarrassed by that. Then it gets to Kengo, and it's like, well, he wrote a love letter to his master. It's like, all right, well, that's kind of funny that there is a thing that the character who should have no level of embarrassment has something. And then it gets to Nanao, and before Nanao's is revealed, he's like, I don't have a good feeling about this, but I'm going to go in. And it's just that level of awareness of the character just broke me at that point. I thought that was the funniest thing in the story, that the character's like, well, my blackmail is going to get revealed, but I better go try it. And then it's like, oh, he's a teenager, and he tried to, make love potions and stuff. And it's like, all right, good. And then it keeps on going, because it's like, Mutsumi has a Taiyo cult. You went back down a level. Mutsumi is the most boring character in this series. You can't do this. You can't end on her.
Or you have to actually put something in there. You have to give her like a detail that's not just she's a married woman who loves her husband, because that's not actually...
Mutsumi is the head of the family. And they make a big point of that all the time, which is not just that she is the vessel through which other Yozakuras get their powers, but that she's in charge of everything. She handles all the books. She's in contact with all these people. She makes the important decisions. And then in like every battle strategy meeting they have, she doesn't make the decisions on anything. You can't just tell us that she's important. She has to get to do things. It's so frustrating.
There is a scene where the twins have to like earn approval from every character. And the last person they earn approval from is their mom. And their mom just sits them down for an interview, and she's like, someone is going to kill me or your dad. Which one of us do you save? And just that. And then there's like another one where it's like, there's a fork in the road. You go left or you can go right. There's definitely traps on one side. You're not sure about the other. Which way do you pick? And the whole point of the exam is not to get a correct answer. She's like, you just need to make a decision. And I was like, this would be really cool if Mutsumi got to make decisions. She very frequently goes along with what someone else has suggested and is like, that is the correct decision as the Yozakura family head. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, if you don't want to have her like talk it out or anything.
There's a joke in the final battle that she and Ayaka and I are with the twins, safe and sound, separated from the battle, and are just watching stuff on screens. They're not handling communications with everyone. They're not providing strategy or advice to everyone. They're just sitting there, watching and doing nothing. Why is she the second most important character allegedly in this story? She doesn't get to do anything. This is perhaps like the most dire example of a jump heroine not getting to do anything, because she's on the cover of like every volume with Taiyo. The color of her hair is part of the logo, you guys! Why doesn't she get to do anything?
I don't know. I honestly, as I said, I wish Taiyo and Mutsumi were like more interesting to me. Other people really seem to like her and their relationship. I thought it was very funny when they had to do like a second popularity poll. They're like, this time it's about couples, because neither Taiyo nor Mutsumi were at the top like ranks last time. So I was like,
right.
Yeah, if you put them as a couple, they're the only canonical couple in this, really.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Part of it is also that I feel like the series is a little just confusing naturally. And maybe you're meant to assume she's doing more, but it's hard to actually grasp it. Like, what is your sort of understanding of the narrative of Mission Yozakura family? Starting with, like, all the generations in their, like, involvement in this.
I mean, I can tell you what the story ended up being, which is that there was a little girl who was born with superpowers one time, and her dad went crazy because he thought he could change the world with it. So he started cultivating it, and eventually that turned into a very prosperous family. That then turned into a prosperous family of super spies, and eventually they learned that he was manipulating everything through the shadows, asterisk, and decided that they needed to turn against him.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like
Now,
going back on ideas.
I was gonna say, do you remember that it was like canonically revealed that Momo is actually a genetic clone of that little girl? Yes. And that she then married into the family and had more children? I'm like, I don't know. What does that do genetically to the family? Confusing. I don't know what the purpose of that revelation was. I
mean, there's also the fact that during the Momo arc, they make a big deal that he has dug up the corpses of the previous heads of the family and has injected them with this stuff that has turned them into weird plant zombie things that have Yozakura special powers and everything. And it looks like that's being built up as like the villain group, is these previous heads of the families, especially because the few that you get to see definitely have some sort of connection to one of the siblings. It looks like they're a reflection of them in some way. Like you get to see one that looks like she is a reflection of Kengo. And then Kyoichiro goes to confront Momo and all of them at once, and he kills all of them off screen.
We're
not doing that.
There's a lot of stuff like that in this series. Honestly, even though I know that's when a lot of people were really into Momo, I found the Momo arc to be kind of exhausting. It just felt like it was constantly
he just keeps running away.
Well, it doesn't help that it's also during a period of time where I feel like once every 5 chapters has to end with every character in the family standing together being like, nope,
we're gonna get you this time.
We're gonna get you. Or like, we're gonna start our mission. And they do it so frequently that you're like, are these fucking characters ever not joined at the hip? Like, it's to the point where if there's a scene with one character, like every other motherfucker's in the shadows waiting to jump out so they can be like, we're here too.
Thank God they did finally do the thing where some of the family members started getting corrupted, because everything before that, it happened like 3 times where Momo confronted someone, turns out the other siblings were also there waiting to trap him. They fight for like 3 pages, then he's like, I'm teleporting away now, we're not gonna let you get away. Then he gets away, just spinning its wheels.
Yeah.
By comparison, I was actually much more on board with the final arc in terms of like stuff's happening, we've got a clear goal, we're working towards it. Really wish the final battle hadn't lasted so fucking long, because it really felt like it was just like, we're just like trying to grind this out. And
it's where my big complaint was was just like, oh, Asa has no juice. This character's design sucks. His personality is just a more boring version of Momo's and Kawashita's. It just didn't work for me. I was like, I don't care about this dude and his stupid giant eyeballs.
I'm gonna try and close my thoughts on everything on a positive note. I think that after the time skip, the series is a lot more enjoyable for a long stretch of time when the twins are the protagonists.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't a huge fan of Hifumi basically being cute.
I love Hifumi.
I love Hifumi except for her Koichiro, but for her brother element, right, where I was like, are we doing this again? I don't want to like get into a giant spiel because I know we're trying to wrap this up, but like the series has a lot of characters with unhealthy, obsessive relationships with other characters, and it's a problem that just gets worse before it gets better. Like everyone just starts to eventually develop one. You're like, oh, okay. I don't love this, actually.
Kyoichiro has it for Mutsumi. Mutsumi has it for Taiyo. Her grandfather has it for her grandmother. By the way, they just leave at a certain point. Gondaro was just kind of like, they're too strong and they're not siblings. They got to go away. So they do. There's a lot of them. And it doesn't ever get funnier. But I really liked the like Dipper and Mabel vibe that the two of them had going on, where, one was very concerned and intellectual, but he also had a lot of anxiety issues. And then there's one who's just a murder goblin who just has all the confidence in the world and keeps on diving into situations which she probably shouldn't be able to handle, but it's okay. She can, because both of them have superpowers.
I was gonna say,
getting to see them,
watching them get to interact and solve problems is the best part of the series. I thought, I was like, oh, I'm not even missing. Dynamic. Yeah, I'm not missing Tayo as a character at all, because like these are like better characters to have in the lead. Like both of these characters have a personality I can invest into.
Getting to see them grow together was really cool. I do think that it was a little bit disappointing that Hifumi gets to go on, her own little separate arc and, meets one of the enemy, and she unlocks her blooming and has fight scenes and stuff. And she's acting like counter to what the family wants her to do in a very interesting way. And then it turns out that Alpha just got to sit at home. And he also unlocked his power while sitting at home because he didn't like it. Also, Mutsumi and Tayo very explicitly were on a third mission that you don't get to see because who cares?
Which is a shame.
Matter what they were doing.
The coolest. I cannot stand Tayo and Mutsumi. The only cool scene they have together is when Mutsumi is like, I am going to badass walk through all these scenes of all these people who have fucked us over. My husband's going to protect me, and I'm going to beat the shit out of you, basically. I'm going to... All these people who put bounties on us, all the people who are spreading lies about us, we are handling you, and you're not going to touch me because my husband's going to kick your ass if you do.
100% agreed.
I was like, this should have been 2 or 3 times an arc. There should have been a moment like this.
Yeah. But in general, like the sibling dynamic is just way more interesting than the husband and wife dynamic. And it actually does play a role in the conclusion of the story, where the two of them working together do something that seems on its face impulsive and stupid, but Alpha wants to do something, Hifumi backs him up, and because they do it, they end up saving their family because they have faith in each other and they work together. It's a much better example of what it feels like the story is supposed to be about all the way through, which is, the power of family bonds and stuff. Look, this really did kind of smack of like some of the same problems that Bleach had, which is just, I didn't like that idea, so I'm not doing it anymore. Here's a new character. I'm going with them now. And that's not a bad way of doing a story, but it has its problems, which do emerge over the course of Mission Yozakura Family as well, where it feels like there are a lot of things that just get dropped, and there are also some things where it feels like there should have been follow-through, where there weren't, even with characters that do stick around. It gets to the point where I feel like even the siblings, some of them just stick around because they kind of have to. Futaba, I do like her, but it feels like there weren't any ideas for her because she's too strong. When they have all their final fight scenes and stuff like that, she just wins. She just wins, and that's all that there is for her. Because she can't have an interesting fight anymore because her abilities are too powerful. So there's not even an attempt to do that. Kyoichiro, for that matter, has an entire rival story with his best friend set up, and they're just like, no.
Yeah, happens off screen. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, if I was a shipper, I'd have been fucking furious. I'd have been like, you cut away from the juice of this moment?
We gotta have more pages of Asa going, but I will win. But I am right. Being the most boring character in this series. So, Look, I didn't hate this series. I was frustrated by it. I feel like there was a lot of potential in it where it could have been really good. I do understand why it's popular. I feel like it is a very big comfort series for a lot of people because of how broad some aspects of it are, and how it does stick to the guns of the family get to do stuff, and that's fine. My big thing when I go into a manga is I like to have interesting characters. And I feel like for as many characters as were in this story, a lot of them are really not interesting to me. This was like having pizza with no crust, where it's like, look, a
Good.
lot of the stuff that what?
Good pizza.
See, there you go. Like we're different in that way.
Yeah.
Just as like I am different from the audience of this series, where it's like I really like really good crust on pizza, and if you don't have a good crust, then I feel like something is missing from the whole thing. So I do acknowledge that there are a lot of really good elements of this story. I think that humor can be good. I think the art, a lot of times, is really good. I feel like when Gondira decided to lean into a lot of the fetish stuff, it's like, you're not good at that. So maybe you shouldn't be trying to do it. But it didn't have something I could really sink my teeth into. And so because of that, it was a very frustrating experience for me. I really just kind of ended up coming away from this thinking like, it's a shame that the twins just weren't the protagonists from the beginning. I understand why you couldn't have done that, but they're the most interesting characters to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to end positively as well, which despite the fact we spent a good like hour now kind of talking about some of the things we didn't like about the series, I want to loop back around and say like, I do get why people like this. This was not like a jump hit in the sense that was like, I think there's an anime out and I've yet to hear anyone besides people connected to this podcast talk about it. You know, I've never run into like a Mission Yozakura family fan in the wild or anything like that, but like
maybe if it had a budget.
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, there's a few series that could kind of host like that, but I do get why this series ran for as long as it did and why people really like it. I do see why there is comfort in these characters. I see why elements of this are super enjoyable. I see why people were saying like, oh man, I wish I could vote for Mission Yozakura Family for Series of the Week because it would easily clear it. Like there's so many great chapters and like, I feel like if I was a big fan of it, I probably would have felt that as well. Because there are a lot of big moments in this series. Maybe too many, but like, you know, very frequently there is a big emotional moment in every single chapter. And that's great. This wasn't for me. I realize that now. I could fully accept that and kind of let it be what it is. I don't think I'm ever going to touch this series again. I don't know if I'll even think about it that much. But I'm very glad I read it and maybe put hopefully a nicer kind of closing bow to Weekly Manga Recap's relationship with the Mission Yozakura family.
I will say that because I've watched the anime as well with Nicole, and that's been a very valuable experience for me, I think, because there's definitely been parts of watching that series that have been frustrating for me, even without what the problems that we've talked about, because again, it's not a very high budgeted show. There's a lot of shortcuts that are taken, but she really enjoys it. It seems like it's got a very strong like comfort series thing for her, and seeing it through her eyes has definitely helped to, I think, remove a lot of the bias that I had against the series after we soured on it after a certain point. It made it easy to understand why so many people like it and why it was as successful as it was. Because this was for current day Jump, quite a successful series in the magazine's run.
Yeah, I think it was like right next to like, and I think ahead of Undead Unluck kind of in terms of like sales numbers and everything like that. So, God, it was very close to like, I think it was like the third or fourth most senior magazine by its like time by the end. It's crazy, you know? So all due respect to it. I'm glad everybody enjoys it, and hopefully us talking about it maybe convinces a couple people to give it a try, see if they like it, and if they do, I think you're going to be in for a great time. I think you're really going to enjoy what you have coming up for you.
Yeah, but we got a lot of manga to talk about that besides.
Holy shit, we have so many, and we spent so long.
We're going to throttle through this. Ichi the Witch, 29th Hunt, Quinn, let's begin the operation! Descarus is essentially put in charge of security. She's getting all sorts of information put towards her for, you know, a capture of someone that she doesn't want captured because if Ichi dies, she dies. While she's going through this, she's also eating a lot of food, Queen. And then she's, you know, she and Kamugi are freaking out, of course. While the others are away, Ichi just comes up to her, hiding under the table. How'd he get under the table to begin with? I don't know. But he comes under the tablecloth and is like, hey, Descarus. And I like how she says letters, but she doesn't say words. Just It's very funny. She makes a funny face. She and Komugi have to very quickly hide him, and Deskros tries to murder Ichi with her legs, which I'm sure that some people are like, take me instead, calm down. But so she manages to get everyone out of the room because it's like, oh, we're going to cast a ritual, which will let us definitely come with a good plan. We need to cast the ritual in private, though. Get out. And they listen to her. And so then she gets under the table, grabs Ichi, and is like, what the hell are you doing? And Ichi says, you got to help us acquire Bakugami. Come on. And they're like, what the hell? Off-screen explanation happens. And so they at least hear out Gokuraku in terms of the truth about Bakugami, at least as far as he understands it. But Deskros points out, like, I don't know if we can trust this guy. And also, you know, if he's just wandering around punching them, he's kind of just making our jobs harder. There's been more than one case of a witch who's had their acquisition derailed because of him. Good point.
Yeah.
Gokuraku, however, says, like, look, once Bakugami is captured, you can punish me, whatever. Destroy my bracers. Arrest me. It's fine. I just want to do something about that magic. Deskros looks to Ichi and says, why do you trust this guy? Feral instinct! And he's my friend. What a good boy. And Deskros kind of like gets a fond smile on her face. And then she's like, you fucking idiot.
He basically like went to his super intense teacher, was like, I think he's cool based off the vibes, so I think we should destabilize this government.
And Deskros, as someone who is in favor of destabilizing the government and who operates on vibes all the time, is like, yeah, that's a good kid. But then as a teacher has to be like, no, don't do that. So Deskros, however, has a plan. She says it's the all bark, no bite plan. So she goes out to meet with security and says, hey, can you do this? I want to do a reinspection from the Witches Association. And the head priest tour guide guy says, what, you want to reinspect Lord Bakugami? Says, oh, yeah. We'd love the opportunity to do that, you know, even if it's just to learn what the traders want. And he says, no. Lord Bakugami, I've said he is our treasure. We can't do that. That'd be invasive and stressful. And Deskros says, well, okay then. I suppose there's nothing else for it. And there is a dramatic shot as behind her, backlit by the full moon, Ichi is on the roof and he has a megaphone.
Bakugami sucks.
Yeah, this is the plan. Just like, fuck you, Bakugami, you suck.
Just announce on a megaphone, make everyone real mad, and they run towards you.
Everyone's like, what? You can't say that about Lord Bakugami. Go get him. And then Ichi's like, I have a flying shark. Whee! Flies away. You can do anything if you've got a flying shark, Quinn.
I was going to say, honestly, it's a pretty good mechanic to have in your back pocket. If you ever need it, you're like, I can't just sail away on this shark if I need to.
Yep. So everyone's like, holy shit, that guy is using magic. How? Because, of course, Ichi is a boy. And so a bunch of the security try to run after. The head priest is like, but Lord Bakugami, we've got to stay here and protect him. But Eskar says, it's okay. I'll protect Lord Bakugami. And you say, but. And Deskros turns and says, what? Y'all think you're better than me? I'm so glad to have cool Deskros back. She's been very funny these last few chapters, but I like to have both sides of her. And the guard's like, well, okay, I'll lead you inside, but I'm not going to leave here. Are you sure you shouldn't be giving orders to security? No, it's fine. They're trained for this purpose. What's that over there? Attack! Karate chops him on the back of the neck.
It's very interesting because I wasn't sure what was happening at first. Are these two guards that look identical, or does the one dude be like, all right, we'll entrust the Lord to your aid, and then he just doesn't leave?
He just doesn't leave.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Yeah, very fun, and I do like the idea that she's just like, hi-ya! She just fucking Miss Piggies him.
Knocks him out, goes through the curtain into it doesn't actually go quite into the area yet, but she summons Golconda, the weird owl snake demon thing that she used on the World Hater magic before to try and get it to drop its acquisition method. And she says, I'm going to interrogate this thing. Time to blow the lid off this joint. And as she approaches, we see that within Bakugami, that strange glasses-wearing magic is seemingly detecting her coming.
Honestly, Miss Piggy kind of feels like a very close kinship with Descaros, like in a lot of ways. Like if you were going to cast Muppets to play this series,
Yes.
she would be Miss Piggy. Ichi, weirdly enough, is probably Animal.
Magic, magic, magic.
I'm not sure of anyone else, but those two I'm almost 100% positive on. Yeah, it's a cool little thing. I like getting to see. I mean, Golconda looks so fucking cool. It looks awesome. It's good stuff. I love Ichi just showing up and just like screaming into a megaphone like Bakugami blows. Everyone sucks but us.
Absolutely.
Just cool stuff there.
Yeah. So fun stuff. Looking forward to seeing more of the plan in action. Blue Box. Chapter 191. It's your turn.
It's your move, Nicholas.
Last chapter, we actually ended on the note of Haruyu agreeing to train the Yusa brothers. But he notes to Haruto's like, it's kind of weird that you're actually like going along with practicing with your brother. And he says like, yeah, I hate him, but he's really strong. So yeah, I'm going to do it. He says, I don't care like if my pride has to take a hit from this. If it's going to help me win, I'll do it. And Haruyu says like, okay, well, in that case, I've got some hints on how you can take down Taiki Inamata. Well, I mean, he did help train Taiki a lot. He did observe a lot of his weaknesses, so it could be very valuable information. Back at AMA's basketball game, Chinatsu and company are in a very tight contest. We see that they're completely tied up with their opponents. All of her friends in the audience are stressing out over it. At that moment, Haruyu. I was saying Haruyu before. I meant Hyodo was training them.
Yes, Hyodo, yes.
Haruyu says to Taiki, it's like, hey, by the way, about what we were talking about before in terms of like, life after sports in high school. He says...
It's such a funny moment because, like, the game's tied. They're in the final corner. This could not be a more tense moment.
Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, he just kind of elbows him and is like, hey, you ever think about the future? You definitely should be right now.
He says, I feel like I've already got 1 foot in adulthood, but when I watch the game, I remember the pressure on the court, the tension in the air, the desire to win. And he says to Taiki, you better go to nationals this year, too. Guys who give it their all are cool, and they leave a lasting impact on the people who watch them. And I'm not just talking about myself. There's some more of the basketball game happening, a little connection between Chinatsu and Nagisa, who scores the basket, and Haruyu keeps on talking. It says like, hey, Chinatsu has shown us what her coolest looks like. Next time, it's your move. More basketball, more Taiki reflecting on things and how like the importance of like, he's kind of like getting a different perspective on their time together because he's always been seeing her like, hey, she's been practicing this whole time. And noting like, oh, those things come natural to me is what Chinatsu said. How she would just like play basketball, go to practice. And she understands in this moment, like, that's all going to end after this tournament. She has a nice little moment where she does, as she's shooting a basket, nice work, me.
Yeah.
I gave myself a pat on the back because I did well. And she scores a basket that seemingly wins the game. Like, it's not something that gets a whole lot of attention placed on it, but it looks like she shoots what's probably a 3-point shot, and her team wins by 3 at the end. So, hey, she finally made the big score. Hooray!
Very important. What a big win. Can't wait for the next match to be just as exciting.
And they lose. Off screen.
It is like a page turn of like, the next day, they lost. And you're like, fair enough, that's what this series does. Taiki got knocked into nationals in the first round by a no-name person.
There is an important bit where like we do see a little bit of the aftermath of the game. So like her friend Yumika comes over and gives her a hug too. So she gets to bask in like her friends got to see her win a game at this level, and that's nice. And then the next game, basically, they they lose. They lose in the quarterfinals, and that's it.
Yep.
Chinatsu's done with high school basketball, and as far as the bit of narration we've heard from her basketball career is just entirely done.
Yep.
So Taiki wakes up the next day. He goes to practice. As he's headed out the door, he looks at Chinatsu's door and, reflects on, the end of Chinatsu's game. But we also see a little bit where at the end of it, where all of her friends were like, saying goodbye to each other because like some of the team is graduating, she gave him a little smile. So she's not like super heartbroken over it. And there's a cute bit where like, those two that started showing up early to go to practice thanked her for their hard work. Taiki then reflects on, being told by Haru, hey, it's your turn now. And he thinks, I don't have time to be feeling lonely. Not until the day comes when my own high school athletic career ends. So it's like, hey, back to work.
Yep.
He opens up the gym and Chinatsu's practicing shooting baskets. And he's be like, what are you doing? And Chinatsu's like, I mean, look, I've been doing this every day for years, so it's just a force habit. And she also says, there were a few things about yesterday's game that bother me, so this is a bit of a cool down. But then she passes him the basketball and says, I also wanted to say this to you here. You have to go to nationals, Taiki. And she gives him a big smile while she's saying that.
Yeah, it's cute. I like that there's all this tension now being placed on Taiki's next run to nationals, not just with, hey, it's your turn to look really cool now, but also Haruto is gunning for him. Like, specifically is like, I am going to beat you to get to nationals. So we are now in the full, like, Haru is now Taiki kind of mode, or Taiki is now Haru mode, and like, I don't know what'll happen. Before it was a little bit easy to predict, but Taiki made it to nationals once. There's nothing saying he's necessarily going to make it again and make a big run, but we shall see. This is one of those moments where you're like, yes, like time moves forward. Chinatsu's basketball career, at least her high school version, if she ends up doing anything else, is done. It's just finished. So that's like a pretty huge step into series' progress. Like, she is going to be graduating soon. I think you mentioned recently, and like, I don't know.
A few months.
There's going to be a very big status quo change, I feel like, very, very soon.
Yeah. I mean, Taiki and Chinatsu, as they continue to date, they're not going to be going to practice together anymore. So that dynamic between them is going to, in some way, change. And we'll see how that goes. And hey, now that we're at this point, maybe as well, we might branch out again. Maybe go check in on those like B-plot romances that are, in the works as well.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see what's going to happen. This has been a very interesting little story arc that we've had about Chinatsu's basketball run, because there's been a lot of focus on that recently, both between the story arc line with her dad and now with her career ending. And it's just nice to see, like, even though she didn't win, there's a very nice, very happy ending for her, it seems.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But not all characters got to have good endings this week, Quinn. So
I'm trying to imagine who you're thinking of.
Chainsaw Man.
I guess the guy in Marriagetoxin, he doesn't get like a great ending. Turns out he was a robot. No. Yeah.
Chapter 199, enjoy your food. All right, so the character we knew as Fami.
That sounds like a compliment. I bet I'm going to enjoy this chapter.
The character we knew as Fami, it turns out, is the actual Death Devil. And the new exchange student is the real Fami Famine Devil. She is now on a platter with the fake Saw Man, with the Death Devil and the Falling Devil standing over them. Death Devil just revealed that she's removed all of her organs as well. She says, even if I could die, another Death Devil would just be born after I die, and if the next Death Devil doesn't enjoy human culture like me, then mankind would be destroyed in no time. The fake Saw Man makes a very good point of, can't you just not destroy mankind? And the Death Devil's like, no, prophecy and stuff.
It makes sense in the way Chainsaw Man's universe works, in that devils are made stronger by fear, and if everybody believes, I mean, like, you remember the 2012 shit, like, everyone was fucking like, the Mayan calendar says it's gonna end, dude. This is gonna be like, you know, it makes sense that like so many people believe that there's like an end days coming, that it's just gonna forcefully activate the Death Devil.
She literally will be so strong she can't stop it from happening.
Yeah.
So Fami brings up the point of like, I mean, you could just get eaten by a chainsaw man, then this concept of death will cease to exist and everyone will be saved. And she turns to the fake saw man and says, Chainsaw Man, open wide! No, Fami, you've got it the wrong way around. So Death Devil says, I've got a good idea. If you two cooperate with me, maybe mankind won't be annihilated. And so Fami is like, oh, well, okay, yeah, then let's help. And Death Devil says, no, it's not possible. Well, why not? Because I'm going to eat you. So
Luckily, she doesn't mean literally.
No. She eats Dakimasus, and she takes a knife. And sometimes less is more, you guys.
I actually kind of like the way they portrayed this, in that it is a soundless thing. You do not have to like hear these characters scream, but you can tell when they are being eaten.
It's not quick either. She seems to eat them at the pace that a human would. And they're both alive while she does so. Until there's basically nothing left. Also, a murder of ravens or crows or whatever kind of, you know, rook-like birds.
Nick, we can't do this. We got to know which one it is. If the people are going to shit all over us. Doesn't one of them have like a brighter beak? Hey, Google, what's the difference between crows and the other one?
So the Falling Devil wants to know, it's like, hey, how was it? And the Death Devil's like, wasn't very good. And the Falling Devil's like, oh!
Shit, they both have black beaks, Nick. I have no idea. Wait, no, hold on. This one looks like brighter.
Okay.
I'm gonna figure this out, Nick. I can't help you with any of the recap, and I'm gonna figure out if these are crows or ravens.
The Death Devil reaches into her mouth and pulls out two little figurines of Fami and the fake Saw Man, and explains as well that, like, you know, meat tastes best fresh, and savoring lives as much as possible is good manners, as in it's not necessary to eat them alive, but she thinks that's the good thing to do. She tosses the figurines on the ground and summons them, and boom, there's Fami, there's fake Saw Man, they're back. And under Death Devil's control, which is why Fami immediately spins around and screams, salvation! And uppercuts the Death Devil in the face, and gets really angry about the fact she was eaten. Death Devil finally, however, manages to go, wait, and the Falling Devil stops Fami from fighting further, and she says, I order you two to plunge mankind into an abyss of terror. And both of them are like, yeah, okay. All right, so
I believe these are crows, Nick. Apparently, you need to look at the plumage at the very tail end. And that,
so the pink,
well, like,
opinion feathers?
Yeah, basically, like, you see how it's all even? With a raven, the middle parts would go out a little bit more, making more of like a diamond kind of shape to it, if you think about it like that. That's what I'm reading in a site that is not AI generated, I presume.
Gotcha.
I believe a human wrote this.
So the difference between a crow and a raven is opinion?
Yes. Wait, are you tricking me?
All right, so there's definitely further credence to the theory that the Death Devil and Chainsaw Man are very much linked, given that the Death Devil's powers work by fucking eating things.
Seeming likely. All right, Nick. Dandadan, chapter 189. Jumpin' Granny and Kung Fu Alien. We still don't have a name for this character, so I'm just going to call her Soldier for the purposes of this chapter. Soldier is fighting against Okarun. We get some more of her flashback. We see her embracing somebody who she must have loved, presumably at a wedding of some kind. And then also scene of her getting, like, brutally like roboticized by space globalists. So not great.
She's got a replaced eye when her helmet comes open.
So, exactly. Yeah. Okarun's just kind of blocking, trying to like jets into her. She goes metal and she just opens up her visor and just fucking bites Okarun real hard. They have like a bit of a fight, but in the fight, Okarun accidentally grabs onto the nano wrap. Doing so, it weakens it. He doesn't have as complete of an image as Kenta does. Soldier kind of reels back and does like a super kick and just breaks the entire chassis piece that Okarun was holding on to.
Very cool image.
Yeah, very cool 2-page spread. Hase is fighting Kenta, has just like kicked him away and sees that the soldier is about to like kind of finish the job with Okarun. And Hase jumps in and interferes and is like, hey, I said I'll be the one who wastes Takakura. Get in my way again and I'll waste you instead. And Hase just starts fighting the soldier, just starts beating the shit out of him. Does like a giant, like kind of like 3-hit combo, launches them into the ground. And while they are fighting, Kenta's like, hey, we should use this opportunity to like get our shit together. He basically is like, we must merge.
Hase's got the key to beat Okarun right now.
Yeah.
It's to let Okarun prepare to fight him and focus on someone unrelated to his side instead. You're so smart, Hase.
He's so smart. He is such a little genius. I can't wait for him to join the group. It's going to be super cool.
No, please.
Kenta says we must merge, and
Okarun
is like, we aren't robots. What does that mean? Kenta says,
what a poisoned mindset.
That's a poisoned mindset. We are robots. No, the robot is me. And he doesn't really get a choice. Okarun is just forced to merge. They do the great merging. Okarun is just basically the cod piece on this soldier, basically the legs. And as Kenta just sits on his shoulders, and he's like, all right, I can handle this better, the great Kenta better than everybody else. But you're the one who's used to combat, so we're going to need like your combat abilities to do this. And Hase finishes.
From a certain logical perspective, it makes perfect sense.
It does. And you're like, what a great combination of both of your skills. Hase is finished dealing with the soldier, so he's like, all right, I'm gonna stay out of my way. And Kenta and Okarun are like, an opening, an attack. But it's like missed. It's not a very good attack. And there's like a little bit of a back and forth there as they very quickly realize they're like, merging actually made us worse. We're so much heavier and it's really hard to move.
I like how Okarun points this very obvious point out and Kita's like, what? It's incomprehensible to him. It's like, no, 2 robots combined, we should be stronger.
I mean, it makes sense to me. Why would this robot not be stronger now that there's 2 of them? The Megazord was always stronger than the individual Zords put together, so obviously that logic would work here. That's the end of the chapter, by the way. I presume we'll see more of this fight as it goes in the future, but there's fun little elements at play.
Yeah, I'm liking the action in this. It's not as creative and interesting as the basketball thing was, but it's solid, fighting. So it's good.
I forgot World Trigger. I forgot World Trigger was this week.
We what?
Yeah, there were 2 chapters of World Trigger this month.
Fuck. You're right.
Do we want to save it for next month or not next month, but next week if you haven't read it?
I have read it because it's them dealing with the food.
It's right? It's the door. They have to decide what to do with the door, and then there's a bunch.
And some of them just decide to break it down. Some of them, and there's like a whole thing that involves. Some of them decide like, okay, we're just gonna fix it. We've got the tools. We have the technology. Some of them decide we'll try and fix it, but if it doesn't work, we're breaking that thing down. And some of them are just like, fuck it, break the door down. Yeah. We need to eat. Which I will say would probably be my instinct too. It's like, fuck that door. We don't need it to work. Yeah. It's just the door to the pantry. It doesn't need to work.
Why do you need a door to the pantry? Are you worried about rodents in space? What are you doing?
The important thing from there is that in Utagawa's squad, Yuma is talking with Sayoko, the girl who a long time ago was established to not be comfortable talking with boys.
Holy shit. I know that's this arc, but I have to sit here. Was that 2 years ago or 3 years ago that detail was established.
I think it was 2 years ago because I think it was before or at the very beginning of everything that was established that like that's one of the reasons why Yuma was picked was that like look, this girl is uncomfortable with guys, but hey, Yuma's very young looking, so she'd probably get along better with him. And so he reaches out to her and says like, why do you have a hard time with this? And she says what seems like a very unrelated thing at first, which is, do you believe in astral projection? And she tells this story about how when she was young, she could see things like in other rooms, in other buildings. Yeah. And she explained it as like, it's like I just send my eye over there and I can see stuff. It is connected to me. And she got, quote unquote, in trouble because she discovered that her teacher who challenged her to, spy on him and, like eat food. And he was like, oh, and I'll do a thing to help her save face by telling her a bit stuff beforehand. She actually did spy on him remotely and found out that he was seeing a woman who wasn't his wife.
She didn't know. She
didn't
gave
know
all the information that he was planning to tell her ahead of time. She's just like, hey, you're eating spaghetti with your wife. And he's like,
yeah,
you weren't
with tomato sauce.
Yeah.
And you ate it with your wife, the lady with long hair. And so he was like, don't fucking tell lies. Don't tell anyone. She didn't learn until later. That wasn't his wife. That was a woman he was cheating with. And so he intimidated her and stuff. And fortunately, he ended up transferring to another school. But from that point on, she was like, I can't just like tell people anything. And also she just like, was traumatized by the incident.
It's difficult for her to interact with older men because that's who really kind of bullied her in that moment.
Absolutely makes perfect sense. She was traumatized by it. Yuma, however, is very kind to her and also explains you have a side effect. It's a very useful side effect. You could use it for scouting and stuff like that. And he says, like, have you told anyone about this? And he's like, I don't know. I felt like people would think it's creepy. And he's like, you should like tell like the bosses about this because that would give them new options for us and it would be very, very helpful on future missions. There's a lot more planning that happens. There's like aftermath of all the door stuff that goes on. There's analysis of stuff that's happening and people noting how the scores have changed and everything. Mizukami thinks of something and at the end of the 2 chapters has a proposal for his teammates. And that's it.
I got so Joker-fied reading this chapter because I just had a moment where I was like, Nick, imagine how fucking crazy it would be if Yuma and Osamu interacted. Like, imagine how much it would fucking blow your mind if Chika and Osamu talked to each other. Like, I'm trapped in this hellscape. Like, I want someone at some point to do like a supercut of that point after a World Trigger chapter where we just talk about it and you could just hear like the different stages of grief that we all continuously exist in. Where you're just like, I don't remember what this series was about before. It doesn't exist the same way anymore.
Hey, I enjoyed getting to know a new character and their little thing and why they're nervous about it a lot. I just wish that we hadn't been doing the same thing every month for years.
It was because I was telling a friend of mine about World Trigger, and I was like, you don't understand. We've been in the exam to pick the teams to go on the away mission for years. And there's still another part of it left. Like, we're not done.
Oh, man. I also did see a thing, however, of people pointing out, like, World Trigger's volume sales are incredibly strong.
Yeah. I think there is an audience for this that is like, we are
ride or die.
Yeah, they're like, I don't give a shit. This shit rules. Ashihara, basically. And I think it's awesome because I'm like, look, Ashihara's life is like irrevocably changed, like health-wise, as a result of this series. I want there to be people supporting him because you know what? If he's going to make this the rest of his life, like he should get paid for it and hopefully be taken care of for the rest of his life.
Yeah. And I'm glad that it seems like Ashihara is enjoying doing what he's doing. So, but yeah, it can be, you can have both thoughts in your mind at once. You know, it's the same thing as like, you know, with people with Game of Thrones, like, yeah, George R.R. Martin, we're glad that you're happy with everything, but also fucking write a book.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
Astro Royale, chapter 48. That's all. The Daybreak Ore. Oh my god, it's so awful. And it's stealing people's emotions and stuff. Turns out the whole thing with all the betting and stuff is because it feeds off of emotions like greed and hatred and passion and converts into energy. And so look at how fucking strong he is, guys. And I'm going to take yours now too, Hibaru. And Hibaru goes, crap, I can't control my body. Why? But fortunately, Tyra...
He's all tired, Nick. Remember, he punched real hard like 2 chapters ago.
Fortunately, he's not only tired, he's also Tyra, as in Tyra gets in the way and defends him.
Wow, Nick's were fucking on fire with these puns today.
Oh no, another one goes out for Shikaba, and Hibaru's like, Shikaba's in trouble, because he cares about him. But it's alright, Tarasu summons the shield and blocks him. That's right, Tarasu, you're alright! Of course he fucking is. And then Tenda goes, but I ordered Shikaba to kill you! Oh man, can you believe that the bad guy and the redeemed bad guy who was serving him, the redeemed bad guy, didn't listen to the actual bad guy? What?
I like how it's all done retroactively, though, to be like, don't worry, Shikaba was never really evil when you think about it.
No.
He helped Tarasu, so that's why there wasn't that second match.
That's right.
It's so Tarasu could do this.
You know,
I guess.
You know what would have really been helpful, Shikaba, is if you used your teleporting eyes to get people out of the arena so that the Daybreak Ore couldn't drain them of their power, instead of leaving whatever to the guy with the shield who forgets he has a shield sometimes because he just learned he can turn into a sword. What was Tarasu supposed to do? Anyway, Tenda's got octopus legs coming out of his lower half now, and he's like, what the fuck? Why'd you do this? And Tarasu says, you're the one who set us all up, because Shikaba only did one thing. He called Hibaru here. That's right. Shikaba never did anything bad in the saga except for call Hibaru to the arena.
There was a little human trafficking. Just a tiny little bit. And we saw the one girl we knew got kidnapped saved. So presumably there are no other victims in that human trafficking ring.
A net harm of 0 Shikaba was responsible for. That's right, Quinn.
That's utilitarianism right there.
Oh my god. So then Tenda's like, whatever, I got wings now. I am a god beyond human understanding. Look, my tentacles are also now eyes. What can you do? And then a helicopter comes in. Hey, Rari's here. All right. Also, Ko is here?
Ko!
With his arms. Also, Kurana's here. And also, Genji's here. And also, Kinpa's here. And also, Tarazo's here. Quinn, I have a suspicion that maybe Astro Royale's getting canceled because all of them are here!
I lost it during this chapter. This is my favorite chapter of Astro Royale, by the way, because this is the first chapter where I was like, it's fucking ending. This shit is wrapping up. They got rid of everything. They're like, everybody's here. This is a whole, everybody's here now. And it's very satisfying. It means nothing. I don't know where half these characters came from. Did they all come in the helicopter or just like conveniently did they all show up at the same time? Who gives a shit, man? I don't know, but like this shit's on its last legs and we don't have to read it too much longer. I was pretty ecstatic about that.
I love that we get the big, Yozakura family, our mission begins now pose with everyone there and everyone's striking dramatic poses and stuff. And then because Rari's in the helicopter, she's just way in the background over there, not posing with anyone.
You could have had the dude who isn't even a member of the fucking family be flying the helicopter. I don't even remember this guy. I guess they needed him to be down there so he could do his leech life fucking power and heal everybody. But like,
he's Kinpa's adoptive father.
Oh, it's just one of those ones you're like, why is Ray not down there? It does seem like you're gonna make like a cool battle pose, and then there is just like a helicopter in the background that they have to be like, well, Ray's in there, so like everyone's here. It's just remember she's in the helicopter.
Oh man. All right. Embers, remember the name. Chapter 10. You better remember it because it's so oh god. Look, sports series, they got to be different in Shonen Jump apparently. I feel like this is like just like gonna just be one of the main bits of evidence of that. You better have hot guys that can be shipped together if you're gonna be a sports series in Shonen.
This does though. That's what blows my mind is they have two dudes who are definitely shippable with each other.
Their designs are too jagged, Quinn. I don't know. I don't know.
They need
do
softer
I look like I know anything about Shonen Ai?
Look, I wish I could sit here and tell you how this shit works, but like I don't get it. I love every sports series that comes out, and then I'm always like, I guess this one didn't take off, and I sit here trying to like figure out what made Haikyuu different, and I don't have an answer. I thought it was very good, but I also thought this has been pretty good too. So I don't know.
Soccer games start going on, and then Kosei's not doing well, and it's basically Haitani's fault. He's out of formation with everybody, and he's like, I'm supposed to be the offense's core though. What are you doing? And everyone's like, you're blocking my lanes. I can't pass while you're over here and stuff. Himiko is like, look, he's participating in the offense. His studying is paying off. And Yuki's like, what? No, it's bad that he's doing that. He's supposed to not be there. He's leaving openings in our defense. Look, there's a gap over there. And Himiko's like, yeah, it's double offense for us. No, that's wrong. And they're just not doing so well because, unfortunately, the giant dude on Ibaseryu, like, whenever they launch a ball into the middle, he can't be defeated, even by Bugai. He's just like, you're all so tiny, and he just heads the ball into place, and the team gets completely broken in half because of that. And the people from the elite teams they're watching are like, yeah, that blonde dude's just wrecking the balance of the team. He thinks that he's like helping, but all he's doing is just tiring himself out. And Haitani's like, what is going on? Nothing makes sense. Should I move up? And someone's like, no, get back. Oh, do I move back? No, you have to move up. He's just completely out of position the whole way through, and he's trying to think his way through. He's like, what do I do? What do I do? It gets to the point where he gets tunnel vision. He's staring at the ground, and just like he's starting to feel his limbs are heavy. And he's like, what I thought I was going to learn. I was going to be the best, and then maybe, and he just gets this little visual of like not even like winning a big championship, just having teammates pat him on the back.
Yeah.
And then he collides with Kamigai, who does him like, what are you doing? I told you, I've got this. And he's like, I'm sorry. And he gets, really upset because she's like, oh, this is my fault. I like tried to like give him an informed opinion and I just like confused him. So everyone expects Haitani's going to get benched. Haitani expects that he's just going to be told nobody needs him around, just like his teachers in middle school did. And at that moment, the guy calls him over, and everyone's like, shit. Yeah, he's mad. He's really pissed at him. And the guy says, Haitani, calm down.
You got this.
You got this. And Haitani's like, what? He's like, if you're having trouble making a decision, look at me. I will signal you. And Haitani's like, are you not mad? He's like, why would I be mad? Yeah, you're running around in circles, but you're trying as hard as you can. I'm not going to berate you for that. Calm down. Do what you always do. And Haitani says, but I thought I was the core of the offense, but I can't dribble, I can't shoot or any of that stuff. So you say, do what I always do, but I suck. So how's that going to help? And so the guy's like, oh, you overheard Yukizuki and I talking and got confused. I mean, yeah, like, you suck at shooting, you suck at dribbling, you suck. Yes, you do suck at all those things. Yes, that is true. But to do any of those things I just named, we need to have the ball first. And of everyone on the field, who's the best at stealing the ball from an opponent? You. Our offense starts with you. So go do what you always do. It's something only you can do. Awesome.
Very, very
There's
cool.
There's a little bit of follow-up after that, but that's like
That is the core of the chapter. It is cool. We all sort of saw this happening and like read the pieces, but like it's cool and satisfying to see it come together. I like how Haitani is kind of like pulling it all together with like, I'm full of insecurities because I am just like, I was berated and told I was worthless by almost every adult I knew in middle school, and he just assumes the same here. And Bugai has an opportunity and he just reassures him. He's like, you're doing okay. Keep trying. Like, let me clear your head about this. Let me explain what I meant about the, the core to the team's offense, but like, we can get there. And now, he's just going to beat up this big tall dude, and that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it ends on a cool note, too, because he's like, yo, let me tell you something I can do. 1, I can steal the ball from you. 2, there isn't any number 2 right now. It's like, it's like you just admitted you suck, but in a cool way, and that's awesome. So I really like this. Like you said, it's very obvious, but that doesn't matter. It's in terms of how it was done.
Yep.
Hima-Ten, chapter number 37, Fireworks Show. Hima gets a notice from her assistant, her manager, or whatever, says like, oh yeah, I've got like a meeting for, the fall line launch schedule and stuff. You want to do it tomorrow night and the evening? What do you say? And she says, do you have plans? And Himari looks at her kimono and, thinks about that plan where she was going to meet up with Iamori, maybe at the fireworks festival, but he never gave her an answer on that. So she gets a text from him saying like, hey, tomorrow's, a cleaning day. It's supposed to be the last fireworks show, but you wanted to go, right? And Himari's like, well, hey, Tsubone, would it be possible to do the day after tomorrow instead? Said, no, I got other work.
Yeah.
So they're just left with that. She texts with Iamori some more. And Iamori's like, hey, we talked about going after our class. I think you'll get an invite. Do you want to make it with us, to meet up with us? And so Himari is left to think it over, and she decides to do the meeting. And so she leaves Iamori the next day to do the house cleaning and stuff. It's like, yeah, I'll leave things for here. Hope you have fun at the show. And Iamori's like, are you sure you can't make it? And she's like, there's no way I'd get there. It's too far away. And she also brings up that Kana's not going to make it either. So she's like, I would feel bad if she got left out too. Which is nice. It's nice to be reminded that, like, hey, yes, this is obviously like, a romantic comedy, growing harem kind of series, but also all these people are very good friends with each other.
Yes.
So, Iamori says, like, you said you weren't going to help me anymore. This isn't like you trying to be nice in order to, like, get me close with Anoka or anything by staying out of the way. And she's like, nope. I would pick work over fun all the time, right? I've got CEO brain, remember? Bye. And Iamori's like, I don't really buy that, but she goes off. Gets to meet Kanai and Mayu. They're in Yukata's. Glasses guy is there too. Still don't remember his name, but he is there. So
they say his name at some point, don't they? Yeah, who cares?
It doesn't matter. So Iamori is, smitten with Honoka because she's very, very pretty. Mayu teases him over it for a bit. It's like, hey, maybe we should hit up spots and find the spot the lovey-dovey couples and stuff. They enjoy themselves with the shaved ice. Iamori keeps on being like, I'm so glad I got to go to a fireworks show with my crush. It's great. And then as soon as that happens, Anoka is having the, shaved ice, and she sticks her tongue out. It's like blue because that's the stuff they put on it. So she gets a little cute moment too. They play, some games as well. And Iamori ends up winning the super special prize, which is in a bag. Countdown to the fireworks show happens, and Iamori takes out his phone and starts to record it because he says, yeah, Yoshino said you wanted to see the fireworks, so I wanted her at least to see it this way.
Yeah.
And
very
Honoka
sweet.
just very sweet, and Honoka's like, that's what I like about you, Iamori. I think that you'll love it. Especially since you're the first person who got to know her after she moved here. And Iamori says, thanks. I'm convinced now. The fireworks happen, and Iemori thinks about, the conversation that he had with Himari where he said, hey, let's say hypothetically, if I said I wanted to go with you to the show, what would you say? Close on that scene, go back to Himari. It's made me so sad when I was reading this the first time. She's just back home. It's dark. She's all by herself. She's heating up, a meal by herself. And it's not even a meal that Iemori made for her. It's just
like a TV dinner, essentially.
Yeah. And she's like, why didn't I just ask him like normal and say that I wanted to go? If we'd already had plans, then I would have been able to like push back the meeting. I would have like been able to do that. If I had just done it earlier, he wouldn't have assumed I was just trying to stay out of the way. And she's tearing up and she's sad.
She's real sad about this.
She gets a call from Iemori and is like, oh, I wonder what that's about. And she answers the phone and he says, hey, you home? She says, yeah. Why? Well, then, hypothetically, if I said that I wanted to show you a video of the fireworks and I was heading back to your place right now, even though it's not a cleaning day, and asked if I could come in, what would you say? And she pauses and says, I'd say I wouldn't mind, I guess.
It's so fucking cute. It's so fucking cute. Come on.
This is unfair. You can't do this to me with black and white lines on pieces of paper. You can't do this to my heart.
I'm not supposed to be manipulated by this. Yeah, this is really good. I enjoy it. I want to see these two happy, no matter what that ends up looking. I also agree with everyone in the chat that I think the two friends that are trying to play wingman are going to end up getting together just because they keep end up having to do like the side couple stuff. And I'm like, honestly, kind of invested in it a little bit.
They share interests.
Yeah, they're like, I also have a friend who's a complete fucking like dimwit who won't do any of these things unless I force them to.
I mean, that's basically what happened in Nisekoi with was it Shuji and Ruri? I think were their names. It was like the two characters that were central to the friend group that weren't love interests of either Chitage or Raku.
But those two also had a pre-established relationship in that Ruri thought Shu was annoying, and that was the thing. These two are just like, we are the third wheels.
We're satellites
who are just going to be the fourth, like the double date essentially. But like, I feel like they're accidentally gonna end up hooking up or something. Nick, Sidcraft, Love is a Mystery, Chapter 19,
yep.
Or so to say, Case 19. The inventor downstairs trifles with the great detective with abandon. I am not going to be.
Oh boy, it's a new harem member. New harem member alert. I am not going to be talking about it here. I did not have time to read it, but I did want to note that if you are interested, there is a new chapter of We Never Learn that is a crossover with Sidcraft, kind of being used to, I would assume, help kind of pull some eyes towards this series that otherwise isn't faring super duper great. But anyway, this chapter is about Elio and Sid, who hear a giant ruckus downstairs, and Sid explains, oh, that is the inventor who lives downstairs, Dr. Hakua. And they go down there. There's Dr. Hakua, and she's talking about her machine, the Kafuria 48, or whatever. It's, it's meant to be her personal Hakua helper. And we see Hakua, who calls out to Sid, Big Bro Sid, and she's got the little goggles on her head to let you know she's an inventor, and she's got an enormous bosom, if that is the fetish you were waiting to see added into the series. Voila! I hope you enjoy. I hope this fills all of your wildest dreams or whatever. Taishi Sui is like, I gotta do something.
Look, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. So the entire thing is Elio's like, oh, I didn't realize Master had a little sister. And both Hakua and Sid are like, she's not my little sister. We're not actually related. And so Elio's like, oh, so you're just the kind of guy who has girls call you Big Brother, huh? And he's like, no, it's not like that. I don't know why she's doing it like that.
It's not weird. There's just a girl in my basement who's really affectionate with me.
Giant tits, and she calls me Big Brother. So she has a moment where she's like, "Big bro Sid, can you piggyback me to the bathroom?"
Not weird.
She's apparently very lazy. That's part of her gimmick. She is so tired because she notes that I haven't walked to the bathroom forever on my own, so I'm pooped. I guess because her robot broke, she had not been used to that. We see that when Sid was a little bit younger, and Hakuo was much younger, 5 years ago. I don't know exactly what age she's supposed to be, but she looks like she might be like 8, 5 years ago, so I don't know what that implies about today.
I don't know either.
I'm not gonna think about it. I don't think I processed that it said 5 years ago in that flashback.
Maybe she just had a very late puberty. Maybe she's 14 in this flashback.
She's actually 23 5 years ago. She had some of those weird moments where, like, in your mid-20s, you suddenly gain, like, 4 feet or whatever. She creates a big robot to help Sid with all of his stuff, and he's like, "Oh, it's okay, you messed up. It didn't work out." But she's like, "You'll get it next time, Hakuo." And Elio's like, "Oh, wow, you're, like, really close siblings." But Sid's like, not really, but, like, we are friends. I kind of haven't been talking to her recently.
Oh, really? You don't say. You might say that it's been 19 chapters since I've talked to her.
Oops. Oopsie poopsie.
And she lives in your basement, you say.
The basement of his building. To be clear, she is the landlady's daughter, so that is why she is allowed to be here. She just happens to be Sid Kraft's next basement neighbor. She tries to kind of, like, I don't know if she's flirting with Sid or just being a hot woman in his vicinity. But anyways, a robot activates. It starts grabbing the girls. There's a moment where Hakuo is like, "Oh, this is terrible. My little prototype's gone berserk. The only way to stop it is with this laptop, and it's you got to use a name for a password, but I'm so tired, so I'm conveniently going to fall asleep now so Sid can solve this mystery." Elio's like, "Oh, I hope this all goes okay. Don't do anything too dangerous. Actually, you should probably get out of here." And then she hears a rip, and she's like, And her clothes are, I guess, exploding off of her. This is a thing that very commonly happens when you're, like, constricted.
Yeah, it's concerning if you get squeezed in one area and that causes outward force in another area of your body. Well, that insinuates organs are being shuffled around.
No, her boobs are just so big, or her top is exploding off. Don't think about the implications more than that, please.
It's not the size of the boobs that concerns me, Quinn. It's that apparently she has boob bouncing action. She's an action figure where if you squeeze one part of her body, another part of her goes blah, like karate action.
Yeah, absolutely. The robot stops, though, because Sid figured it out, and he's like, "Oh, you've actually been so kind the entire time. This robot you build, you name all of them after the person you build it for, and then you just rearrange the letters, basically. And you've been coming up with a whole bunch of them for me the entire time, for Sid." That was what Frodis, I think is the name of it is. And Hakuo just says, "I figured if my machines could make your work easier, then you'd come down and play with me more often than before." Aww. Very, very cute, but very sad. It's like, "Yeah, I guess I just started getting a little bashful around it. I'm sorry. And from now on, I'll come to play with you more often." And she's like, "Oh, in that case, I'm exhausted for the day. So let's go night-night together." Put Sid on her lap. There's like shenanigans there. Her boob hits his head and he just passes out. But the notable thing is that the last panel shows that she managed to get one of her helper bots working. And because of it, a lot of Sid's extra, like, paperwork work is being done. So it's an excuse for Hakuo to be more involved in the cast going forward, because as you said, she is another member of this harem.
Yeah, I don't really have a very strong impression of her just yet, mostly because it feels like there are elements of her that kind of seem at conflict. But whatever, if she shows up more, then we'll see.
Yeah, it's very fine. I kind of wish if we were going to add a new girl to the harem, I wish it was Mad Cat Misery, because I just think that character is funnier. Nope.
Better in small doses, I'm telling you.
Fair enough.
Marriagetoxin, chapter 123. Oh my gosh, so we gotta go and get Nabe. And so both Chinatsu and Gera rush off to do that. Also, Kinosaki gets in the car and drives. Good for them. Kirito
Oh
managed,
wait,
however.
are we not on Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi?
Nope, we're doing Marriagetoxin right
Okay.
now. We'll go back to Kiyoshi.
Okay.
It's fine. So look, we can't turn back. We gotta
No,
go
this
faster.
forward momentum is going forward. You know what? Forget it. I didn't even say anything. Ultimate Kiyoshi. There's a number 1 demon, and what's his name is fighting it, and that's going to be next week. It's pretty cool.
Kirito is gonna fight against this one guy whose name he still doesn't know. However, he's heavily wounded after all the stuff that's happened with the AI swords and everything. And he's mocked because it's like, hey, you can't even like wield a sword right now. So the guy is like, to prove how badass I am, I'm going to just rip off this arm, and I'm going to hold the arm holding the sword.
But like, we didn't know he was a robot before this, right?
Well, he's not a robot. It's that their bodies have been modified, as established in the previous.
I guess he wasn't always a robot. But like, if you rip a person's arm off and there's like fucking wires and electricity shooting out, I'm gonna call you a robot because that's right. You are at that point. So yeah, he's a robot in my mind. It's crazy.
He tries to be all intimidating and stuff to Kirito, who just says, "What was your name again?" He's like, "It's Chuto! It's Chuto!" Rushes towards Kirito, swinging the arm, swinging the sword, and Kirito has a moment where he thinks like, okay, everything that I'm supposed to do is about just determining what the opponent's stance and footwork and everything are, and then determine how to swing my sword to cut down the enemy in front of me. It shouldn't have to be that complicated. And he switches to wielding his katana in his toes again, the same way that we saw him when he was first introduced. He jumps over the blade and surf slashes with it, and while declaring fighting with the sword should be unrestrained and free. And he beats Chuto that way. And he says, I remember now. An overly earnest sword style packing a punch, you're Chuto-san. If you'd come at me with your own skills from the start, then I'd remembered who you were immediately. Anyway, he wins. Cool little bit. Nabe is rampaging through everything, trying to make her way to Gaku, and she reflects again, just kind of like reiterating the relationship between them and how they stand now in terms of how, they've aged. They're both towards the end of their life. But she also says, after 90 years of living, I am now at my peak, and I'm so excited. Just how much stronger have you become? Junatsu and Gero are rushing in ahead. Gero is concerned because, like, hey, Kunisaki is warning all the people in the residential area to get them to take shelter, but he doesn't know what to do at this point. Junatsu reaches out her arm towards him and says, hey, use the same toxin you used on me back then to make me stronger. Gero reflects on the conversation he had with Kirito in terms of like, hey, when you see her in danger, you throw everything aside to protect her. But why do you do that? Why don't you just use her as a shield? That's her job. If you can't bring yourself to do that, you should distance yourself from her. So, now he comes back to the present, and he warns Junatsu that the toxin burns away the user's life. And so he's like, I don't really know what to do. When we fought the Windwheel clan, I didn't have time to think of it. And I know how important it is for us to stop Nabe. But also, if I do this, I'll feel pain because I know that I'm hurting you and diminishing your life. Junatsu quietly contemplates that, and she says, it feels pretty nice to have you worry about me. But what I want is to fight with you. My life burning away right alongside yours. And she reaches out and takes his hand, and she gives him a really, really nice smile. Yeah. Aw. That's our chapter.
It's cute. It's fine. We'll see what happens next. I'm kind of honestly more excited for the Nabe stuff to kind of come to a close because I'm waiting for like what's the twist to this story? Like, is she gonna get there and this dude's already like hobbled and like halfway in the grave, like isn't strong anymore? So like I feel like there's like an extra twist I'm waiting for in the story in some way.
Yeah, it seems as though like she is expecting Gaku to be really strong, and it's like, what can happen in 90 years? Maybe he's just waiting to die for you. Like, to touch a little bit more on Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, Chapter 39, the first Demon Lord, Tonjinshi, said guy shows up and starts wrecking house. He just beats everyone that shows up, including Karuta, who comes in and tries to save the day. Yeah, that doesn't work. He just blocks punches and kicks, slashes Karuta, and it's like, my turn. Another big thunder thing is like, I'll just wipe you out with this. Nope, he just takes it, and that's it. Karuta collapses like, that wasn't bad. Not good enough, though. And then the sniper guy shoots him with the sniper rifle. The Exorcist bullet just gets chopped in half. He just slashes so hard that he cuts through him with a wave of energy, grabs Karuta. Mako shows up and he cuts her leg off. Fortunately, that was the prosthetic foot. Tonjinchi immediately realized that and it's like, all right, well, maybe if I cut your other foot off, you'll get stronger. Good point. Karuta tries to intervene, gets impaled. Nihan and Jackjo show up in their combined form and stab, and that gets blocked. And he's like, I'm going to protect everyone. And Tonjinchi just immediately beats him down. And he says, words are cheap. The absolute absurdity born out of absolute violence. This is the power that no human could ever reach. I am that absurdity. And he's going to kill him too. But Sujiri shows up to save the day. And he says, this is a job for a cross paladin. Overall, it's a good introduction for a really dangerous bad guy. He just kills everyone. Yeah.
He's just beating everyone up. It's just a bummer that like a lot of these characters are like, oh. So like getting introduced to all of Sosuke's group, they weren't actually that important because none of them did anything until they were here to basically get beat off screen be beaten like one move. So it's fine. It is what it is. But Nick, let's talk about a chapter I'm real excited to talk about.
Are you excited about, Quinn? What are you excited about?
I'm so excited about this week's new Exorcist, Nick.
Oh dear, it's chapter 93. Egg! So, last time Gakuro asserted dominance over the girl. I don't remember her name.
You have to, Nick. She's part of the harem now.
She pretty much is. Aramine. And so he's like, you're going to tell me about the Fujino family. And Aramine is just like, oh man, I might just tell him because he's so cool. Sure. And then Gakuro's like, all right, well, I'm going to drag you out of here then. And then she realizes, wait a minute, is that an egg? And the egg hatches. And it's a new weapon avatar.
It's Shaman King, Nick.
Long have I missed the air of the mortal realm. 'Tis a delight. So, yeah, Aramina is like, wow, I better take that thing out of commission. Spider webs, bah! All these things will absorb energy from you. You'll never be able to cut them. He cuts them. And then she latches onto him and says, I'm just going to absorb all your energy.
I won't let you run. You'll never get away.
Grabs onto him. There's a cocoon around them. And she says, you'll stay locked up here with me for a while. And Gakuro says, Yokaku, analyze energy circuits. And Yokaku, the new Shaman King, says, as you wish. And successfully infiltrated target ability.
I love how simple everything is for Gakuro. He really just sits there and he says a word and like he just wins. Like he's just like, oh, fucking analyze, and the things like that's what I do. I just revealed myself to you, but I do in fact analyze and counter things.
A bunch of Yokaku heads go through the web and stuff and find, master's energy detected, beginning assimilation. And they start like white blood cells absorbing all of the energy that was taken in by the web to take Gakuro's energy out of the web. So then they're not surrounded by the cocoon. And then you can see that Aramina was like, no, I'm getting on this guy. She just completely head to toe grabbed onto him. But then the cocoon around them is gone. Thread loses its durability. And Aramina is like, no! And Gakuro says, I'm sorry! And he, does something. I don't know. She acts like she's wearing less clothing for a brief moment. She's not, but she acts like it. All the webs go away. Just like, no, that I spent years and years weaving that house for me and Gakuro, and now it's gone. She gets all upset and cries. And then she's defeated. She goes back into her school uniform. And Gakuro's like, now tell me. I won't. All right. Picks her up.
Fair enough.
Style. I'm taking you to Nue's room. Goes off, and Armia's like, she's completely losing it because like, my God, he's so cool. And then Gakuro's shadow says, "Is that your limit, Ishu? I didn't want to obstruct your passion, so I stayed quiet as long as I could. But it looks like you weren't able to seal Nue's medium." And Aramiya is really upset and sniffling and stuff. And then the shadow says, "Naturally, I had a contingency measure in case you failed." And something happens, and she kicks her way out of Gakuro's arms as like shadow starts to go over her face, and she warns Gakuro to run. As Yokoko is like, she's gonna be a poison-emitting doll now. When the shadow says, 5 minutes remain, the poison will blanket the whole area around the school. If you embrace her now and share that poison, it will remain in your bodies instead of spreading. Why did you tell him that? So
because he wants Gakuro to die. So if he tells him like, hey, you can save everybody by infecting yourself intentionally, he'll do it.
Yeah, choose. And Gakuro's like, don't worry, analyze energy circuits. And he stabs himself. And the shadow's like, what the fuck? And Yoku's like, body infiltrated, initiating scouting maneuver. And hey, look, I found the poison source thing. It's this creepy old energy man.
Thankfully, there's just one dude.
Oh fuck, what are you doing here? And Gakuro says, eat it! These gross big sharp face teeth alligator. And preparations complete. Consume target. And Gakuro says, draw the poison into me! Eat all of it! And the shadow's like, well, that's a problem. Shit.
Damn, I wish he had had the exact power to counter exactly what I do.
So that happens, and then, yeah, it's like, all right, energy's consumed, a little of the poison remains, and Gakuro's like, oh boy, I feel tired, collapses, and then, so Aramiya just brings Gakuro back off panel to Nue's room, and Nue is like, wow, I can't believe you didn't run, aren't you on Raisei's team? And she's like, oh, this is the thing that all sick people need, is for me to soak a rag and put it on their forehead. So she's doing that. And Nue's like, tell me about the Fujino family. She's like, no, I gotta care for Gakuro first.
I like, he got stabbed through the belly. He took a sword into his tummy, and she's like,
wet rag on the forehead.
If I put a wet rag on his forehead, I'm being very diligent in taking care of him and healing his wounds.
Well, he stabilizes, though, Quinn. Look, Nue says he's stabilizing.
He is stabilized.
And then Aramiya is like, 3 days from now, Raisei plans to resurrect all the Hyo except for you, speaking to Nue. I think he'll be ready to transport the Hyo's sealed main bias to the Fujino estate tomorrow. Okay, cool. Anyway, Gakuro wakes up later. Did anyone visit him? Aramiya has been there the whole time, and she's like, I told Nue everything while you were asleep. Selling out your comrades is a strange feeling, but yeah, it feels kind of good, but also kind of bad. And Gakuro says, Aramiya, stay with our squad. Why? Because we're the enemy, and you gave us information, so you shouldn't go anywhere. She starts crying, and then Nue's like, yeah, good job, Gakuro. Why are you listening outside the door? You didn't need to do that. You could have been present for that. Whatever. And she's like, I was just thinking of visiting the Fujino estate. You know, that place that we left everything fully resolved and then decided it wasn't fully resolved. Anyway, you two are going to go get married. And Gakuro's like, ah! And Aramiya is like, ah.
I love this chapter, Nick, because I also get the feeling that New Exorcist is ending from this chapter when they're like, all the Hyo are coming back, all at the exact same time. They're all gonna be here. We can't stop that from happening, but we can be prepared for that. And I was like, yes, let's knock all this dog shit out of the magazine at once.
We'll see.
I'm not getting too excited, but this did feel like a sign that we are moving in that direction.
Speaking of directions, I don't know. Akane-banashi, story 153. Suffer. Shomei is on the cover of this. Very cool. There's a bird behind him. So we reiterate.
Now, is it a crow or a raven?
It's neither. So.
Well, I can't see its plumage in the back. How am I going to know?
Well, I'll give you a hint.
That'd be great. I just see an elephant. I'm like, Nick, is this a crow or a raven?
It's a crow or raven. Oh my god, the new version of is this what the butterfly?
Oh,
is this a bird?
Yeah.
Is this a raven?
Is this a raven or a crow? It's like a cheeseburger.
We have it reiterate to us just how insane Shomei is, that he prepares everything perfectly. He knows exactly what beats all of his performances will have, including the audience reaction every single time. That is all in accordance with his principles, the power of the Okanban craftsman Shomei Subakiya. He finishes performance, goes backstage, he bows to Hasho, who he hasn't seen in a while, and then Akane, love her little gremlin faces whenever this happens. She's like, "Oh, Master Shomei!" And then he's like, "Oh, give me my watch back." Right. Wait. And she tries to get his attention, and he's like, "I have a 3-minute cooldown for performance. That's one of my principles." And so Kane's like, "Oh, sorry. Tyson calls her a loser, and she says, "Shut up." Good for her. After the 3 minutes of cooldown, he does, however, meet with Akane again, and he says, "Do you understand why I declined to train you?" And she says, "Because the Rakugo would suffer. Improv and by the book, we have polar opposite styles, so it would only be neutralizing the unique flavor of each approach." And he says, "Very astute." And he says, "You do seem to have some skill with improvisation, but my art comes after surrendering your freedom. It's not suitable for you, and we would both be wasting our time." And it's nice to see that where he's not just being like, "I don't have a problem with you" or anything. It's just,
we are
no,
not
this
compatible.
will not work.
Yeah.
So, but Akane knows that, like, hey, the person that she needs to learn the story from is him. So she says, "Okay, what if I can convince you that I can perform like a craftsman? Then will you teach me how to perform God of Death?" Get a big full-page spread for this. Is a very crucial, important moment. And she says, "You say it's because I'm not suited for it, so that's the problem, right?" And he warns her, like, "You could be losing the freedom that is your greatest strength." And she paused for a moment, and then she says, "Being trapped in your own style isn't exactly free either." And Shomei is like, "Yeah, okay, you think you're really clever, don't you?" But he says, "All right, you seem like you really want to learn my specialty." "No, Master Shigama's specialty, the previous Shomei's God of Death. So I will grant your request, but I will not spare your feelings. I do not waste my time on pointless ventures. It is one of my principles." So that meeting is done. Tyson, who is, again, like, kind of just Akane's, like, sounding board for a lot of stuff, it seems, while she's separated from her Rakugo family, tells her, like, "There's no way it's going to work for you." And Akane's like, "Why are you so negative? Why you diss me all the time? Like, why is that your first instinct all the time?" And Tyson says, "Look, the Tatai Zenza that said Master Shomei is the watchdog of the Federation. He doesn't back down from anyone. He's really hard-headed about this stuff. And plus, he said, you don't have the sight." And Akane says, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" So, a new important term has come up. Also, Akane looks like a gremlin while she's drinking tea. It's very cute. So she's left to think about this, and she's like, is that a hint? What do I do to prove myself to Master Shomei? And she's quietly thinking about that, and Tyson says, like, "Hey, don't come here on days when you're not performing. Master Shomei is not coming back." "What?" "He's very busy. He's very busy with shows and judging."
Yeah.
And it kind of thinks, judging. And so she quickly just, Googles competitions that, Shomei is judging, and finds that there is a Zuyun Prize, a brand new competition for Futatsume, which, of course, she now is. The head judge is Shomei. So she goes to Tyson and is like, "You did it!" And she starts, like, noogieing him and stuff, messing with his hair. And immediately just, like, boop, 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 takes a picture of herself so that she can enter into it. And it's done. She is entered into the Zuyun Prize contest. And she says, "All that's left is for me to run it." So Kaisei? It's not quite Kaisei. I had his name and then I forgot it. The journalist is meeting with someone about...
just Rakugo Monthly guy. I don't know.
Rakugo Monthly journalist hears that there's all these entries, and of course Akane is involved in it too. And so he wants to, like, put a hole in his other work so he can focus on this. No, that's actually something else going on. Someone hears the news that Akane is joining this competition, and she's putting all her other work on hold because she's got to focus on Rakugo training to prepare for this. And so her manager's like, but it's just a new contest. Who cares? And Hikaru says, Akane Arakawa is entering. What better reason to throw my hat in the ring? And you can tell that she's more mature now because she's wearing a leather jacket.
It's a good look. I'm not excited for it's a good look. I'm kind of envious of it. I kind of want to rock a leather jacket. So
I saw a funny comment among our Discord community. You can join our Discord community by clicking the link wherever this is posted. That's just posted this image and said, just ask her out on a date like a normal person.
It really is. Like, if she shows up to the Rakugo event like this, she's just like, I'm here to meet you, Akane. You're like, all right, just ask her out. Like,
and Akane is like, cool. Why aren't you in like your yukata to perform Rakugo? I was gonna make a. You're ugly. Runs away.
All right, Nick, do you want to wrap up Weekly Manga Recap for this week?
I would love to do that.
Let's talk about One Piece Chapter 1145, Wildfire in Forest Sector 2, Branch Route 8. Luckily, it does not seem like it's important to know that these things have, like, numbers associated with them. It's just one place. Also, we do get a color spread because the One Piece anime is back. So people are excited about that. And also, the cover page story continues as Old T hugs Pepe and says he's still alive. So
meanwhile, Yamato's just in the background, like, I'm cool and I'm over here.
Yeah, he's just got his sword that he's like, I'm supposed to return this.
I don't know how to use this thing. Where are all the clubby bits of this sword?
Yeah, why is it when I try to swing it at people, the sword goes flying out? We start the chapter with a brief explanation to I don't remember this guy's name, but he has a shield that can talk, and Zoro and Sanji kill a beast and they cook it. I don't know why this is really there. It's here to give us some more logic. It's also explained that it's not a shield that ate a devil fruit. It is a person who was put into the shield, similar to how Zeus was when they fought Big Mom. It really exists there to be a joke where they're like, oh, you know Zeus? Yeah, he's our manservant to our navigator now. So, funny little joke there. But more importantly, we have Loki start to explain what he actually saw the entire time. And he's like, yeah, the Holy Knights were here. They're the ones who beat me up this badly. This seems pretty bad. I think someone even notes, they're like, wait, that seems pretty bad if the Holy Knights are here in Elbath. That seems bad. There are a couple very funny jokes where, like, the food is returned and Luffy is like, here, Loki, let me help you. And he just keeps hurting him. Like, he puts, like, burning hot meat on the guy's face. And he's like, oh, you should get some tea to drink it down. He's carried, like, this enormous cup that he's like, ow, ow, hot, hot. And Loki's like, no, stay away. And just, like, Luffy's like, whoops, and just spills it all onto his face. Very funny.
Luffy, you can turn your hands giant. I don't know how to explain this to you.
I just love how he's sitting over there. Goldberg and Nash, or the Goldberg is the Giant's name, Nash is the Shield. So I don't know, maybe it is a wrestling reference. Who knows?
It feels like it could be. I don't know. That doesn't really make sense if you think about it in their dynamics, but whatever.
It doesn't. But I've heard some people theorize that Ripley is based off of Rhea Ripley, and I'm like, I guess I don't know enough about modern wrestling to say, did she ever come out all Vikingized? Was she like the third member of the whatever the Viking tag team is?
No, although there is a character, a wrestler who is married to one of them, and that is kind of her thing. Rhea Ripley, the easiest way I can describe her very succinctly is Tattoo Mommy. So,
all right.
So maybe they have a point.
Austin, check it out. Just type in Rhea Ripley into your Google.
Austin would love Rhea Ripley. Absolutely.
You're getting the approval from everybody. So yeah, if you want to go look that up. Loki is eating the meat now, and it's not burning his face. And he goes on to explain, he's like, look, you really want to meet him? Like, I understand how it feels to idolize a pirate you met when you were just a lad. And Luffy's like, you make it say, like, you say that like you felt that way about somebody. And Loki says, it pains me that I was only a boy at the time. And we see a young Loki calling out to some pirate saying, take me with you. And the pirate responding, I didn't come here to meet a whelp like you. Stop making me repeat myself. And Loki then says, fight me then. And the individual fucking beats him to a pulp and says...
And stabs him.
Basically. And Loki says, I was born in the wrong era. I don't know if we are 100% supposed to know who this is, but based on the hairstyle, I can only assume this is Rox, because it kind of looks like Rox's hair, and there's only so many people. I was like, it's either him or Emu. Those are the only two people whose faces we don't really know yet. So, there is a moment where they're fighting against all the different children's nightmares and everything like that. And
quite a visual.
Yeah. Oh, is Whitebeard also there? I thought that was like a second in command. Oh, that's right.
He's dressed as Shut Up Newgate.
Oh,
and
that's
you can see his mustache,
right.
So.
I forgot that Whitebeard was also a part of that crew. That's crazy. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what actually happens in this segment to see if I need to recap it. There's basically just a note that, like, thank God these kids don't actually know how scary the real life things are. They're actually kind of easy to take down once we know what to do. Yeah. We cut over and we see that the firefighting squad is trying to take out that fire, and Saul is like calling them like, oh, I'm so glad you guys made it. We need you to take out these flames.
Apparently he beat the Fenrir by just punching it on the head once.
Hell yeah. I mean, maybe it took more than one try. We don't know.
That's the only wound you see is just the bunk. So
just a little bump on the noggin. There is a moment of like tension as like the children are walking closer and closer to the fire, and Saul is screaming out like, you guys can do it, you need to, these kids are going to burn to death. There's a moment where Summers is like, oh, look at that, Gunko, the kids are about to burn to death. What happens? Will they wake up? And Gunko's like, they'll wake up from the heat and scream and cry for their parents and then be consumed by the flames. And Summers is like, that rules. Like, he has like a big excited expression. There's like a montage of everybody being like, oh my God, these children are about to be emulated. And Summer's just like, ah, he's so excited by this. But thankfully, Jinbei is here to save the day. He does a sea cloud, shoulder throw, throws a bunch of water on the attack, and the children are able to pass by this section safely. They didn't stop, by the way. They're like continuing. No. They have their own mission to do, but they did help save everybody. And like Robin takes note. She's like, it must have been Jinbei. They're like, wow, that was really, really cool. We cut over to the ship that Colin is heading at this point with most of the crew. And, there's a moment where Colin is like, all the kids at school hate me, but I think of them as my friends. And, Nami's like, that's very sweet. We're going to save all of them together. Gunko shows up on the ship and says...
She's just there.
Yeah, she's like, I suppose the school isn't the only place to find a perky child. So, unfortunate that she is there. Jinbei is there, though, so, like, I'm not super worried, but it is one of those nerve-wracking things where you're like, oh, this isn't a great time for Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro to not be in this area.
And Robin even, yeah.
Yeah. But that's it.
Robin feels like would have a very good power set to deal with her, because they've got very similar kind of vibes to them in terms of just like, I can just send out stuff everywhere. So, but yeah, I like lots of little moments in this. It's nice to see Jinbei get to do something really cool, because it's been a little while since we've seen that. And I feel like some of the visuals in this chapter are really nice. The bit where they're fending off all of the different monsters, and the Gunko's final appearance where she's striking almost a Sailor Moon pose. So yeah, fun chapter.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. A lot of nice little details. I'm sure people who are more familiar with One Piece are maybe like really pogging out on that little flashback and what the implications of that might be, but yeah.
Right. Should we say our favorites then? What was your favorite chapter this week?
Yeah, I think for my favorite chapter this week, I am going to probably say Ichi the Witch is maybe the one I think I enjoyed the most. I think Desgras, as you mentioned, got to look really cool. I love that there's just this moment of Ichi like shouting like, Lord Bakugami sucks, he's a big loser. Like, I just think like all that stuff is funny and it works for me.
It's gotta be Hima-Ten for me. There were quite a few really nice chapters. I honestly was really strongly considering Chainsaw Man just because like of the ridiculous like, oh, she just fucking ate them. Okay. But being reminded of what happened in Hima-Ten on reading it a second time, man, it just really, really got me. It's just very sweet, and the exact right balance of like, oh, that's heartbreaking, and then you're brought out of it with something very sweet. So good stuff. My MVP is going to be Bugai from Embers. It was really nice to just see, like something very straightforwardly done with a character like giving someone that reassurance that he needed to hear, demonstrating like, hey, this guy's a good captain. He not only like broke the situation down analytically, but also realized like, hey, when the morality of one of my teammates is dropping, I need to bring him out of that because I know that he's better than this. It's good.
I like that one as well. I am going to go with the operator girl from World Trigger, though, whose name I don't know. I see Shiki in this list. Oh, Sayoko? All right, then I don't know who Shiki is, but that was also voted in World Trigger recently, so...
I think those are both of her names.
Okay, gotcha. Well, whatever her name is, I'm picking her with the astral projection power because I thought she was really cool. And I like that explanation to why she has that particular condition, and it was like well told. I was like, yeah, I could see that would be like really traumatizing and like kind of make you adverse to speaking to like adult men going forward.
Yeah, overall I would say that like, it's kind of a shame that we spent so much time on Mission Yozakura family, or at least I wish it had worked out so that like there was more that I felt comfortable having to speed through, because there were a lot of really nice chapters this week, and I don't want to like lose sight of that.
Yeah.
But
the audience, by the way, did pick Ichi the Witch as its chapter of the week, and Desgras from Ichi the Witch as the character of the week. The Ichi the Witch supremacy continues.
Good. I mean, why not? That is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back right here on twitch.tv/RoloC next week, probably sometime around 7:30 in the evening. But to know exactly when we're going live, you can follow us on social media. BlueSky, we're Nick F Time and RoloC, and also there's the Weekly Manga Recap BlueSky account. You can also join the follow WMAR Votes, which is maintained by Ninja X3i. To participate in all of that MVP and favored series voting as it happens week to week. And JXAI also keeps track of stuff on the Google Doc, which helps us to do, figure out just like stuff that's happened and also get ideas for stuff that may happen in the future. A little bit more on that later on. We have, past episodes are on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, also on iTunes, Spotify, other podcast feed kind of places. The Discord, as previously stated, is linked wherever this will be posted, so join our community there, and you'll also be able to see when the show goes live, when a blurb goes out on there. And we also have video versions on YouTube, youtube.com/weeklymangarecap, where you can also see the opening sequence by Milo Jack Stillitz and Wensleydale Cheddar, and occasionally title cards done by Steve Man, whose artwork you can check out by just searching for Steve Man art. It's all over the place. And that's going to do it. But we're going to be starting on our next recommendation now that we are finally done with Mission Yozakura family. And Quinn, I just need to be able to read something in less than 5 weeks. So our next recommendation is 6 chapters long.
Hell yeah.
And also, I feel like it's been a little bit of a while since we've done JoJo's Bizarre Pokemon Adventure, and this is kind of affiliated with that in some regard, as in Hirohiko Araki did this.
Okay.
It's a collection of short stories called The Lives of Eccentrics, and it's only like 6 or 7 chapters, and that's going to be it. So, hope everyone enjoys that.
Hell yeah. All right. That's going to do it. See you guys next week on Weekly Manga Recap. Goodbye.
Goodbye.